Hello?
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I will now call the meeting to order. Our land acknowledgement statement. We acknowledge with respect the history, spirituality, culture of the Anna-Sittibec people of the Three Fires known as the Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi nations who have inhabited this land from time immemorial. Further give thanks to the Chippewa Saugeen and the Chippewa Nayawash, now known as the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, as the traditional keepers of this land. We also recognize the Métis Inuit whose ancestors shared this land and these waters. May we all, as treated people, live with respect on this land, live in peace and friendship with all its diverse people. Staff recognition. Prior to commencing a regular business this evening, I will invite interim CEO Clerk Brittany Drury to open this year's Employee Service Recognition Award. Madam Clerk, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening to council and all of our staff that we have present here today. So per the township's policy, our employee recognition will happen at the last council meeting every year, which is this meeting being December 15th. So we have 5 individuals of our staff that are receiving service recognition awards this evening. As council is aware, and for the public's information, at each milestone per the township's policy, our staff are recognized for long-term service commencing at 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, etc. So we have 5 individuals this evening, all from the operations department, who will be receiving awards. And to proceed with the award ceremony, I'll turn it over to our Director of Operations, Stephen Dahlmeyer.
Thank you, Madam Clerk and interim CAO. I'd like to start off this year's service awards for the 5 years. We're going to start with Zach Carson. He's been with the township for 5 years, and he's the facilities coordinator.
Congratulations, Zach.
Thanks, bud.
Continuing on with our service awards here, Mike Marvin has been with the township for 5 years. He is currently an operator with the roads department.
Steve. Thank you.
Congratulations, Mike.
Congratulations. Yeah, thank you.
We're now moving on to the 10-year awards. Dave Hickson has been with the township for 10 years. He works as the facilities operator. Hi.
Over here.
Over there. Thanks, David.
Thank you. Congratulations, Dave.
Thanks.
Thanks, Dave.
Next, underneath the 10-year award is Greg Ritchie. He's been with the township for 10 years, and he is also a facilities coordinator or operator as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Dave.
Great job.
Thanks. Okay, so we do have 2 employees that have been here for 15 years, Troy Unruh and Troy Watts. They are currently not available to attend this evening's meeting, but we will be resigning with their awards tomorrow morning when we do go up to the yards to have a chat with the local yards here. So just wanted to let them know that they are appreciated for all their services that they have done.
Thank you, Steve. On behalf of council, I'd like to thank all these great employees and wish them all good success in the future. Thank you, Director Dahlmeyer. Thank you to all our dedicated staff. Your efforts and presentations are appreciated. Is there any item that council would like to add to our agenda here tonight? Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, staff would like to request addition of 2 items to new business. The first being an update regarding some amendments to COVID-19 regulations, specifically a request from the medical officer of health to revert back to a working from home model. And second, an update from our Director of Operations regarding ongoing drainage efforts throughout the township, specifically those on Church Side Road and the Village of Campbell.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
I guess get the motion coming up.
Seeing none, I'll read the recommendation that an update regarding the township response to COVID-19 be added to the business, and that an update regarding drainage efforts in the township be added to the agenda under new business. That the agenda be approved as amended. Someone who put it on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Colburn, second by Councillor Tringle. Any discussion on the motion before us? See none, all in favor, show of hands. Thank you. Declaration of peculiar interest and clear any time to see fit during the meeting. Minutes of the previous minutes. Recommendation is that the minutes of the council meeting held on December 1, 2021 be adopted. Someone to move, put on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlton, second by Councillor Sullivan. Any discussion on the motion? Show of hands, all in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. We have no announcements. Public hearings. We have one public meeting this afternoon to consider proposed changes to current water structures to pay per usage approach versus that of lump sum. Members of the public register with the clerk to ask questions and submit questions regarding the proposed changes. Thank you to all those that registered or submitted questions for consideration of council. Each speaker will be provided 5 minutes to ask questions or submit comments. To outline participants' procedure, I will welcome our clerk. Madam Clerk, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you again to our registrants who have registered to participate this evening. Prior to commencing the public meeting portion, I'm going to turn it over to our Director of Operations to provide a brief informational presentation outlining the proposed amendments. Throughout the presentation, I would ask that all of our registrants please keep yourselves muted. If you are not enabling your mute, we will do so for you. So please refrain from unmuting yourself throughout the duration of the presentation. Following the presentation, all of our registrants will be called upon to submit their comments in the order of their registration. And with that, Mr. Dalmayer, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. If you could just put the PowerPoint up on the screen for me. So today I just want to have a chat about the water system rates of Georgian Bluffs here. So Georgian Bluffs provides residents and businesses with a safe, high quality drinking water 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The water rates support the reliable supply of safe, clean drinking water, well-planned and suitable infrastructure, and strategic reinvestment of the state of good repair of this infrastructure as well and of its assets. Emergency services are provided 24 hours a day, 7 days a week as well to respond to water main breaks, sudden loss of water pressure, tap water quality concerns, and frozen water service lines. As per the approved council strategic plan, we are looking at components here with this as part of your strategic plan underneath the managing of drinking and stormwater 3.3C to reevaluate the current water building model and to ensure a fair, equitable system that recognizes payments for all water use to promote water conservation. So this was approved by council in 2020. Just a reminder to all people that have water services with the township, it's property owners are responsible for all water charges for their property, including their tenants' use. Your water meter measures your property water consumption. If the meter stops working or shows a low reading, your bill may be estimated based on historical usage until a new meter is installed, just as a friendly reminder. So municipalities are required to prepare financial plans in regards to obtaining their water taking permits with MOE. In 2007, as part of the Municipal Drinking Water Licensing Program, Ministry of Environment released Ontario Reg 45307 as per the Safe Drinking Act 2002. The act requires council to approve a 6-year financial plan before a municipality can renew their municipal drinking water license. The municipality can complete any necessary amendments after submitting the application if a condition is not satisfied at the time when the amendment is made. Staff brought forward a report this past summer as our water license was coming to an expiry. So we had to create a financial plan, and that was one of the pieces to renewing our water taking permits for all our water systems. So in 2015, the township had a financial plan proposal that was as per the regulation. The last plan was completed in 2015. So during that financial plan, it did note that East Linton water system was to increase 20% per year to get to where they were. So in 2015, they were currently paying $1.56 per day, and then by the time we hit 2021, they were supposed to be up to about $3.43 per day. Shaw Lake water system was to increase per year from the 2015 rate of $3.71 per day to what today's date would be $5.98. Wyoming water system was to increase 10% per year as well. The rate in 2015 when the report was done was $4.71, and the 2021 rate was supposed to be $7.63 per day. The current water systems that were under review with this current financial plan are the East Linton water system, Shell Lake water system, and the Wyoming water system. The Oxenden water system is not part of this review as it is currently under an agreement with the South Bruce Peninsula. Please note there has been no increases to the water rates since 2017 or a budget approved since 2017 for water operating expenses. Therefore, the water rates have remained the same since 2017. Water systems must be self-funded. i.e. tax revenues cannot be funding the operations of the system. And dive in a little bit here into these each of these water systems to kind of go through it. So East Linton water system coverage area of this system is Hoy Beach, East Linton, Indian River, Cobble Beach, and Zertaki area. The system was constructed in 1993, approximately 28 years old. Currently, as of today, we have 546 connected properties and 63 that are currently not connected. The current system, our current water system charges that was bylaw passed in 2016, the daily threshold was at half a cubic meter per day at a current rate of $1.89 operating reserve rate combined for an average annual user cost of $689.85 per year. So their yearly bill would be about $689.85. Also, these bills are bi-monthly, so they would show up every 2 months. You get a flat rate cost, and then it'd be over that price. Looking at from 2017 to 2021, you can see the expenses that were required to run the water system in East Linton. Where in 2017 we had $218,816, and it kind of dips down in 2018, and then back in 2019 it's gone back up to $251,000, and then 2020 was $214,000, and as of today, as of October, end of October, we're at $247,000 for expenses for the East Linton water system. The actual water consumption over these years has gone up, and it keeps going up every year as well. Moving to the new proposed water system of being paid per usage, we're looking at this will be proposed for 2022 to 2027. Removal of the daily usage threshold, so all water usage would be charged at $3.43 per cubic meter used, and a daily connection rate of 69 cents. That 69 cents is per day, but would go directly into reserves. This is all subject to an annual increase of 3.2% per year over the next 6 years. Average annual user cost So how we got the annual user cost was based on looking at all the users that were connected to the East Linton system in 2020. And then we came up with what their actual usage consumption was as an average. So the average for East Linton is 159 cubic meters per day, which with this new system with the two charges would be $797.22 per year. The usage charges, just so everybody remembers, are in cubic meters. So 1 cubic meter is equal to 1,000 liters. The chart on the bottom is also showing what the proposed rates would cost and what the old rates are currently sitting at. So if you're using with the rates there from 0 to 100 cubes per year per bill. But we did put a couple of examples in here just so we've had quite a few residents bring in their water bills to us to say, hey, how's this new system work? So the existing bill for this one residential property brought in is from August 31st to October 29th of this year. They used a consumption of 14.9 cubic meters and the billing day cycle is 59 days. So with the current system what we're using is they would be charged $1.89 by the billing days, 59 days for an equivalent of $1,111.51 for the max usage of 29.5 cubic meters. So their total bill for that two-month cycle was $1,111.51. Moving to the new proposed system, same consumption rate, same billing dates, it would be $40.71 going into reserves, and the consumption of 14.9 cubic meters times the new consumption rate of $3.43 would bring them up to $51.11, bringing the total bill to $91.82. So there would be a savings for people that are currently not using the full 30 cubic meters that are they're allotted. This is the second example, which was brought into us as well, where an existing resident has used 39.2 cubic meters. All my examples are based on August 31st to October 29th, so I kept them all the same. Same billing cycle, so it was $1.89 times 59 billing days at $111.51. So they're allowed 29.5 cubic meters for that for the 2-month billing cycle. They were over on it, so it'd be 9.7 cubic meters charged at $3.79. So there's an extra charge if you go over the 30 cubes or whatever the billing cycle is at. So that costs us an extra $36.76. Total bill for this would be $148.27. Under the new proposed process, we're looking at the same kind of cycle where the 69 cents we charge to the 59 days per billing cycle, which goes in directly into reserves of $40.71. The 39.2 would be charged at $3.43, which gives us $134.46 for a total bill of $175.17. So overall, East Linton water rates, the last time the rate change was in 2017 for $1.89 per day or $690.91 per year based on the average consumption. From there, it hasn't changed until this meeting today as we're proposing a new system. So based on the average that we had on the previous slide of 159 cubic meters on average, for 2022, it works out to be roughly about $797.22 per year, which is a 15.4% increase. And then in 2023, we kind of gave the following year's increase of the 3.2, as we have to increase every year 3.2, kind of shows that it'd be at $3.54 per cube, and then 71 cents per day, which is equivalent to $822.01. So that's the East Linton overall rates. Going into Shallow Lake water system, the coverage area is the village of Shallow Lake. The system was constructed in 1996. It's roughly about 25 years old. Current system users is 199 connected and 6 that are not connected. Current water billing system charges bylaws passed in 2016. Daily usage threshold is still, once again, compared to what East Linton is, a half cubic meter per day. The current rate for Shallow Lake is $4.49 for an annual user cost of $1,638.13 per year. So we look at the expenses and then we look at the water consumption that is actually for Shallow Lake. We're ranging from 196,000 in 2017 and working our way up to, as of today, we're at $223,000 so far in expenses. The total operating costs have been raising every year, and this year in 2021 has raised quite a bit more. Average actual water consumption for that has been produced by the Shallow Lake water system is currently at 24,000 cubic meters of water made. It is still going to go up for another 2 more months that we haven't been billed for yet. The proposed 2022-2027 water system charges. So we'll be removing the daily usage threshold, with all usage being charged at the same rate of what East Linton's going to be at, the $3.43 per cubic meter. A daily connection rate of $2.61, which will be going right into reserves. So that will be subject to annual 3.2% increase over those 6 years as well. So we looked at the same process as well. We looked at all the water consumptions within the Shallow Lake Village there. We looked at the average, and this is how we came up with the average to do this calculation. So 149 cubic meters of water per year is the annual average. So it works out to being $1,463.72 per year. As you can see in the chart, the old rates are in blue, and the proposed rates and changes are in orange. As you can see, the Shallow Lake has kind of been paying a bit more over the base rate versus what we're proposing. Shallow Lake examples, we've pulled some bills as well. So right now, the same billing cycle as we did in East Linton, August 31st to October 29th, 2021. So the consumption was 14.9 for this resident. Billing cycle days are 59. So the 449 times 59 billing days works out to be $264.91. And then underneath the new proposed system, they'll be moving to the user pay component. So it'll be $152.61 times 59 billing days to give us a reserve rate of $153.99 going to reserves. And then 14.9 cubic meters going to that, the consumption rate of $3.43 will put us at $51.11. Total bill will be $205.10. So it'll be a little bit less than what they're currently paying out there. Continuing on with our examples here, this example has 39.2 cubic meters of water. So if they were billed at the $4.49 at 59 days to give us the $264.91. They went over their allotment of the 29.5 cubic meters. So there's now 9.7 cubic meters at $8.98 for a grand total of $87.11. Total bill for that month. For that billing cycle is $352.02. By going to the proposed system, they would be being paid the $2.61 times 59 billing days for the base, going into reserves again, $153.99. And then the consumption of the 39.2 at the $3.43, giving us a total of $134.46. Total bill for that cycle, for that resident, would be $288.45. Looking at the Shallow Lake overall rates for the last 5 years, 2017 was the last time the bylaws were passed where a budget was approved for this water system as well. So the residents were paying $4.49 per day, or equivalent to $1,638.13 per year. And that was going on and no rate changes have occurred. Proposed rate system, we're going to be doing the $3.43 per cubic meter, and then the $2.61 per day, or $1,463.72 per year based on the average consumption. So this will be a 10.6% decrease to Shallow Lake residents. The 2023 rate will get the 3.2% increase on the 2022 rate. So they'll go up 3.2, which then will give them a yearly rate of $1,509.31. Onto the Wyoming water system. It covers the Wyoming village. It was constructed in 1987. It's currently approximately 34 years old. Current system has 25 users connected to it. Current water system charges, bylaw was passed in 2016 for 2017. So the daily usage threshold was 3/4 of a cube. per day. Current rate is $5.70. And then the average annual user cost is $2,080.50 per year. And looking at Potawatomi operating expenses, the operating expenses have been kind of trending in a certain little bit of a pattern here. It starts off at $69,350 in 2017. In 2018, it went up to $79,454, and then in 2019, it's gone to $70,000, and then 2020 went up to $77,000, and right now we're at $60,000 as of October 31st. As you can see, the consumption for this little system is roughly about, it's been raising every year, so it's started off in 2017 at 4,419 cubic meters of water, and now they're currently at trending closer to almost 5,800 cubic meters by the end of the year. So the proposed rates when looking at the Potawatomi system for 2022 to 2027, the removal of daily usage threshold, all usage would be billed at the $3.43 per cubic meter, and a daily connection rate of $10.18 per day, subject to a 3.2 annual increase. So the average annual user cost, so we looked at the annual usage for this little system is 230 cubic meters of water per year, which equates to $4,504.60 per year. To give some Potawatomi examples, we looked at a couple buildings within that little system, August the 31st to October 29th, 2021. So consumption, for example, here is 26.7 cubic meters. Billing days is 59 billing days. So at $5.79 at the 59 billing days, works out to roughly about $336.30. For the total bill going to the proposed system, they'd be charged the $10.18 per the 59 days for a base that goes into reserves of $600.62, and the consumption rate of 26.7 cubic meters will be charged at $3.43 for a grand total of $91.58. So the total bill for that billing cycle would actually be $692.20. So the overall Potawatomi rates right now from 2017 to now have not changed. The proposed system is looking at going to the user pay system of the $3.43 per cubic meter at $10.18 per day for a grand total of $45.0460 per year based on the average consumption. So this would be a 117% increase to the Potawatomi system. In 2023, it'll go up 3.2% as listed as well. The one thing with the Potawatomi system we have to remember here is a lot of the current rates that we are using are not covering the actual expenses. So the $2,080 at 50 cents per year times the 25 users, we're only recouping roughly about $52K per year, and we're usually spending roughly about $70,000 to $77,000, which is the loss to the town. So water system are usually a user pay system. They're to recoup the cost and pay for drinking water and all that stuff. So with Potawatomi being such a high increase, we kind of looked at it as a phase-in approach here. So what we're looking at doing here, so for the existing process here, we looked at the same 26.7 cubic meters per day of the 59 billing days, so $5.70 by the 59 billing days at $336.30. So the total bill would be the same there. Whereas if we go to a proposed approach and kind of phase it in over the next 6 years to catch up, we're looking at roughly at $4.40 instead of the $10.18 at the 59 billing days, which will give us a reserve rate of $259.60. The cubic meters, once again, will be the 26.7 at $3.43 for 91.58, which then gives the total bill actually down to $351.18. So this phase-in approach will give us a 15.1% increase in 2022, a 14.8% increase in 2023. So when we talk about status quo and the options of moving to this new system, so staying with a status quo with the base rate across the board, water system remains underfunded. So we're not putting enough into reserves. Reserves are being used to offset the current operating use. So we're using those actual reserves to offset operating costs for our water systems. In the event of an emergency or failure of infrastructure, the township would need to take out a loan as the reserves aren't available to fund the repair. The extra cost would be funded from the users of the system. So there would be an extra cost that does go to the users of the system if that major failure or catastrophe in the infrastructure. It does not currently align with council strategic priority number 3. And then no proposed increases, water rates stay the same. Benefits to move to the new proposed system, inflation is calculated into the rates over the next 6 years until the next financial plan update. 2023 to 2027, water rates will increase presented on an annual basis based on similar usage. Paying for what is being used by the residents. Residents that conserve water will see a benefit under the new system. The existing system does not reward residents for using less. So what we mean by that is right now we have a flat rate. If you get 30 cubes for 2 months, a lot of the residents that do use 12 cubic meters for 20 cubic meters, they pay the same amount of what 30 cubic meters of water is. Conservation keeps rates low as possible. Rates would increase even more if Georgian Bluffs didn't promote water conservation and efficiency. When we use less water, there's less wear and tear on water pumps, pipes, treatment plants, booster pumps. Maintenance costs are lower, our equipment lasts longer, and we delay expensive infrastructure upgrades that are millions of dollars. This also achieves council strategic priority number 3 as well. In conclusion to this presentation, no decisions are being made this evening. Staff and council welcome the feedback from the public to inform staff recommendation. A report to summarize the feedback and proposed recommendations will be presented in the new year. So a report will be brought back in January. If you have any questions, please contact operations with any questions at operations@georgianbluffs.ca. So at this time, I'd like to hand the microphone back to Madam Clerk, Brittany.
Thank you, Stephen. So prior to welcoming our first registrant and opening our public feedback portion of this meeting, I would like to remind all speakers that the intention of this meeting is to gather feedback and host discussions specifically regarding the proposed amendments to the township water billing structures. Council and staff will take note of all comments to form a report and recommendations for consideration in the new year. Therefore, again, no final decision regarding the proposed rates or billing model is being made today. Should any member of the public have any specific questions regarding the impact of the proposed changes to their specific property, please contact the operations department directly. Due to time restraints and a large volume of registrants, staff are unable to answer specific questions in relation to individual property billing this evening. We're happy to assist residents evaluate their bills on an individual basis by contacting the operations department, as noted at the end of the presentation. As a reminder to our speakers, please keep your microphones muted when you are not speaking. If you do not have your device muted, we will mute it for you. Further to the instructions provided to you upon registration for this meeting, to unmute yourself, please select the microphone icon found on your Teams home screen, located at the top right-hand corner of your screen on computers and laptops, or by tapping on your screen on an iPad or tablet device. If you are participating by telephone, please select *6 to unmute yourself. Each speaker will be provided 5 minutes to submit their comments. You will be provided a 30-second warning prior to the completion of your allotted 5 minutes. Should you not wish to make a comment or ask questions, please indicate so when you are called upon, and we will move on to the next speaker. We ask that speakers remain respectful and parliamentary while submitting their comments. Do not interrupt their peers and only speak when they are invited to do so. All participants will be called upon in the order of their registration, with the first registrant being invited to speak first, and etc. When you are called upon, please state your name and address or municipality of primary residence for the record. Additionally, I would like to draw both council's and the public's attention to the written comments and questions as submitted by members of the public. All written comments received have been circulated to council and uploaded to the township website, specifically to the December 15th meeting site. To begin, I will now invite Susan Natchez to submit their comments. Ms. Natchez, please go ahead.
Oh, hello. I have no comments to submit right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, Mr. Brian McIntosh. Mr. McIntosh, please go ahead.
I'm not sure if people can hear me. I'm not showing my face. The presentation that was given to us ahead of time was very, very useful. I appreciate that. It clarified a lot of my questions, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. McIntosh. Moving forward, Mr. Peter Peacock. Mr. Peacock, please go ahead. Okay, and moving on, Mr. Peter Hughes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Sorry, Peter, just 1 minute, please. Councillor Coburn, are you able to hear us?
You go ahead, Mr. Mayor. I think Mr. Peacock was about to speak but was on mute, so I just don't want him to be bypassed. Pardon for the interruption.
Okay, thank you. Madam Scott.
Apologies, Mr. Peacock. Please go ahead. Mr. Hughes, circle back.
Sorry, just the comment I had is appreciate Steve's presentation, but it certainly seems to conflict with the table that was sent out on the back of the notice letter on November 23rd, and it's created a tremendous amount of angst and confusion. So I think it'd be prudent to provide better explanation, or I'm not sure why I can't seem to follow the schedule that was presented, because that schedule certainly showed us as looking at about 193% increase in our water rates on Bonnie Beach Road here. Thank you.
So just to respond to that, thank you, Mr. Peacock. The Aqua, when we were reviewing our financial plan there, when we sent out that letter, we noticed some of the discrepancies in the Aqua plan. So we are kind of had a chat with Aqua and they revised it. So it is now the new financial plan has been posted on the township website. And then this actual presentation coincides with the new financial plan that was updated.
Okay, and to move on to our next registrant, Mr. Peter Hughes. Mr. Hughes, please go ahead.
Yes, can you hear me?
You can.
Yes, I'll reiterate that comment. When the chart came out on that was presented November 23rd in the letter, it did create a lot of confusion. And then when I've got the subsequent data from the PDF file sent to us in the last few days, it does certainly take like a person using the 30 cubic meter, which we've been fairly, by the way, I'm at 507 Bonnie Beach Road and I'm speaking to the East Linton water system. We've become quite accustomed to the 30 cubic meter, so we tend to judge a lot of our data around that. And the two examples that were presented tonight, the one at 14.9 cubic meters, I find pretty unrealistic. I believe somebody submitted that, but I know we're not here to, I'm just passing comment on that. I want to just finish by saying that we haven't had any increases in 4 years. And I don't know why, if that's the case, this would be obviously, if it were brought in more gradual, I think we'd be certainly more open to the idea. But we're in a situation that's being presented and we're certainly listening a lot and learning a lot about these water rates. So in closing, I just want to say that when I submitted my letter to council, after reading the PDF, the rates dropped. I saw it as a 65% increase to a 30 cubic meter every 60 billing days. It has dropped that down to about 27% or somewhere in that range with your examples tonight. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Our next registrant is Ms. Kim West. Ms. West, please go ahead. And Kim, you are muted. Okay, we will come back to you, Ms. West. Our next registrant is Lois Osborne. Lois, please go ahead.
I was unable to go on to the team meeting, so I'm just on the phone here. I think I'm just going to be a listener more or less, but I have a couple quick questions. How many times a year is a bill sent out for the water?
6.
6 times a year?
Correct.
Okay. And how should I understand how each individual billing is? Is it per water heater, did I hear? Is that how it's done in a house? Like if you have a house with a basement apartment, how many bills do they receive in that house? I'm not hearing anything.
So unfortunately, that depends on how the accounts were set up. We do have some multi-residential buildings that were requested to be set up as 2 accounts, whereas others have been requested to be set up as 1 and they only receive 1 bill. Then we're assuming the landlord would issue that out to each tenant.
You know what? I'm having an awful time hearing you here. So I think I'm going to have to receive this information a different way because I hear you talking, but I'm not really hearing what's being said. So, okay, I'll just pass on then. Thank you.
Thank you, Lois. And just to clarify, if you can hear me a little bit better, the number of bills sent to each property is dependent upon the amount of accounts that exist on that property. So for example, if the tenant owns or holds their own account, they will receive their own water bill. If the account is taken out in the homeowner's name, then the homeowner will receive the bill.
Okay. Yeah, I'm zoned for, I guess, a triplex, but I do not have anybody in there and I'm not using water, but my bills are quite substantial, I find. So I just want to get that figured out. I'm not sure that the billing across the whole Shallow Lake property there is fair the way it's dealt.
And Lois, staff will be happy to follow up with you to analyze your specific bill to determine where those discrepancies are coming from.
I will do that then. Thank you.
Okay, and our next registrant is Sandy Ashton. Sandy, go ahead. Okay, Sandy, we'll circle back.
Madam Clerk, could you please remind the participants to say which system they are calling about? It'd be nice to know that.
Okay, and our registrants, please take note. Please indicate which water system you currently are connected to for the record. And our next registrant is Kevin Roy. Mr. Roy, please go ahead.
My name is Kevin Roy. I'm at 618 Balmy Beach Road, East Linton water system. And I have nothing further to add to my letter to council earlier this month.
Thank you, Mr. Roy. Our next registrant is John Brown. John, please go ahead.
My name is John Brown, and I'm on the Potawatomi water system. And I was just looking at the number that came through to the residents, and I think we were looking at $4.88 per day of connected rate, and now we're talking $10 of connected rate, which is a $2,000 upswing on cost. But I'd like to go back to the year 2017. There was an extensive engineering and environmental study done for the subdivision based on the needs that the subdivision had, and there were proposals, and that seems to have become dead-ended. And at this point in time, it looks like our costs are going to be about 5 times the water cost of the East Linton system. So, and we still do have quality problems, pressure problems, and lack of fire protection. So anyway, I'm just concerned that there's some issues and they haven't been addressed. And it's good to hear that we're slowly being eased in with the increase in the cost, but that was a bit of a shock when it went from $4.88 to $10 a day per day on the system itself. That's it.
Through you, Madam Clerk, to Mr. Brown there. Just so you're aware, I know what you're talking about for the engineering studies of 2017. They are still currently on the table here. We're still looking at getting grants and funding opportunities with other agencies here. So we are using this to also help us out with our master servicing plan as well. So I can follow up with you after the meeting as well and kind of go over a bit more in detail.
Yeah, I think we need an update for the community.
Okay, Mr. Brown, does that conclude your questions?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Our next registrant is Robert Canduth. Robert, please go ahead.
Okay, thanks very much. I guess I would simply echo the comments from Peter Hughes and Peter Peacock. I too am on the East Linton system. The information we received today was substantially different than what we originally received. So at this point, I mean, I will take the advice that we got from you folks earlier, which is I'll send my details to the operations department to see what the actual implication is for our rates here. But I appreciated the presentation, and as I say, it clearly was quite a bit different from what we originally saw. Those are my comments.
Okay, thank you, Robert. Our next registrant is John Gibson. John, please go ahead.
Yeah, John Gibson, Potawatomi, 130 Atkins Street. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. John Brown's covered a number of our points, but I want to make it perfectly clear that in 2017, Potawatomi residents were advised that their system was becoming antiquated. We were given a detailed presentation at that time and listed future capital upgrades required. These came from OCWA, and they amounted to $213,000, listing equipment that needed to be done in 2017. I was advised by then operation manager, Mr. Winters, that these were being held because an EA was being done for the planning of a alternate plan to reduce costs and to update our system. That update was to provide connection either with the town of Owen Sound, or a new system out of Sarawak, or connecting with East Linton. An engineering group by the name of GSS Engineering Consultants led us in favor of joining to East Linton, and they provided a presentation. The presentation was September 21st, 2017. At that time, we were advised that the Potawatomi, because Potawatomi cannot grow, because we are a small system and we will not have the growth to be able to take care of any increased operating costs, let alone capital costs, that we were going to be taken onto another system. The taxpayers of Georgian Bluffs paid for an EA to be done, the evaluation of municipal water supply class environmental assessment for the township of Georgian Bluffs was completed and presented on the 21st of September 2017. Residents were told that the cost to the residents would be approximately $18,700 per resident, but there would be some funding and that those grants would be applied for from the province and or the feds. Right now, Potawatomi has 3-inch water lines. Potawatomi has poor quality water by virtue of the fact that it comes out rusty or orange, and we have very little pressure. What we're being told here is that the township is working very hard to increase capital reserves, but there in your report that came out on the 21st of July, 2021, which furthered with a report from OCWA on June 18th, 21, indicated that there are projected capital funds being put aside for East Linton, which we were to join on to, and for Shallow Lake, but nothing for Potawatomi. At this point in time, it seems a little bit ridiculous that we paid so much in a EA in engineering studies, and we're still waiting for a system that I was told at that time was going to take 24 months to complete. Potawatomi residents right now are being treated harshly in terms of their costs, but more importantly, in terms of quality and in terms of no water pressure and the fact that there were no hydrants. In your comparison study, which I appreciate, was a very good presentation at the beginning of this meeting, one of the things that was left out is what those services entail. It's not just that there are services that in terms of cubic meters that are used. It has to deal also with the quality of the water to the residents, but also what that water might provide in the case of an emergency. And Potawatomi has no fire hydrants at all. At this point in time, I guess what I really want to emphasize is that there are a number of things that have been promised or laid out for us. We've attended, we've been patient, and now we have a rate increase that shows 117% increase. I do appreciate that you plan on phasing it out over a period of time, but the end result is that we will pay. And what we will be paying is 3 times, actually 3.5 times in total for the same amount of usage in 2027 from the projected 5-year rate, 3.5 times what East Linton would be paying, a water system that we were promised that we would be hitching onto at a capital cost that we were prepared to get involved in the expense, the capital expense, along with the infrastructure grants from the government, from Ontario and the feds. I think I've said all that I want to say at this point in time. I do want to be clear, and I hope that I can take everyone at their word that it's 15 days now until 2022, and we're talking about 2022 rates. You can see that Potawatomi has some very grave concerns about entering into new rates at 117%, with no promise of capital expenditure upgrades that were outlined to us. I didn't invent these. 213,000 capital upgrades that need to be done that have also been put on the back shelf. So I think that we do need to engage in dialogue with council before we're subjected to these rates, but more importantly, looking ahead at how we're going to bring the communities together so that there's an equitable, not just rate, but an equitable supply of fresh water for emergency services and quality. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. Our next registrant is Ellen Jefferson. Ellen, please go ahead. And Ellen, you are muted. Ms. Jefferson, we will circle back. Our next registrant is Grace Clark. Grace, please go ahead.
Yes, hi. I was just wondering, is there going to be a response to some of the questions that John Gibson posed? I'm also a Potawatomi resident, and we also have the same concerns. We went through months of meetings, being shown that this is what was going to be proceeding would be us hooking onto a new water system. And as of yet, we heard the last meeting was attended, and then we heard absolutely nothing from anybody about what was progressing. And if you guys are still looking at doing this, it would be really wonderful if we had some communication to what is taking place to the residents, like in this form of a formal letter, or discussions, because we've all, as a neighborhood, have been communicating many letters and many communications with the township regarding this issue, and that we were willing to partner and work together to come up with a solution. And as of yet, it's 4 years later, absolutely sort of nothing has kind of happened. So I would like to hear what the possible response is going to be into that, other than we're looking into it. I'd like a more formal response to that, possibly. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. We are making note of all of the comments and questions that are received this evening, specifically in those regards to Potawatomi. Our Director of Operations is keeping track of all of the registrants and will follow up with everyone individually following. I will say that this past year, the township has partnered with Grant Match. That is a service that provides the township with essentially grant mining for projects such as these being major projects. And one of the projects that is top of mind is that of Potawatomi amalgamating with East Linton. So I will tell you that we will follow up with you formally and the entirety of the Potawatomi system following this meeting. And our next registrant is Mr. Brad Decker. Brad, please go ahead.
Good evening and thanks. Couple quick questions. What is the unconnected rate for East Linton? Everything I see doesn't really give that one.
It's just the base rate of 69 cents per day.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Are these water systems all running independent when it comes to operating in reserves? East Linton, all of them?
That is correct, Mr. Decker.
So we're looking at an increase, but when I calc through and I looked at 2020 numbers, 546 connected users at $1.89 a day by 1 year is $376,658, and the operating costs were $214,000. What kind of reserves do we have in East Linton at present?
Good evening. At the end of 2020, the East Linton Water System Reserve was approximately $1.5 million.
Okay, thank you. Begs the question, why are we now looking for more money when we have that kind of reserve? I understand reserves. I try and do it with my own bank account, and unfortunately, I'm not nearly as successful as you are on your reserves for the water system. But I mean, ultimately, the average user is going to go up. But it seems we have a really solid reserve. Like, almost sounds like we could bring the Potawatomi in, but that's a different end.
So reserves are used to fund future capital. So in the event of a major event, failure, or the plant blows up, for example, the reserves would be used to rebuild and anything that is needed to get users through that period of rebuild.
Okay, no, and I understand that. Like I said, I mean, we all need reserves at home to try and, but this at 1.5, it seems a little harsh to be going higher on your average water user when we've already got 1.5 million in reserve.
Billions.
So when we're talking about like water main repairs and upgrades to current water systems that are like upsizing a pipe to have proper flow to the hydrants and all that, you do see the cost of the piping index and all that has gone up through the roof over the last few years. So we're trying to have a nice reserve there just in case. So if the low lift does go at East Linton, or we have to redo the intake pipe, which is currently undersized, those are things that this reserve would pay for, and those are projects that will be coming down in the future as well.
Okay, it just kind of concerned me because I mean earlier in the presentation and in the stuff that was sent out, you know, tax money cannot be used for our water systems. I really hope that these reserves and are not used for other tax purposes.
That is correct. Water reserves are only used for water functions. They are not used for any tax-based functions, such as an arena.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have. I mean, being in East Linton, I feel absolutely wonderful that I'm not in Potawatomi. Don't get me wrong.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Decker. Our next registrant is Mary Innes. Mary, please go ahead. And Mary, you're muted. Okay, Mary, we will circle back. Our next registrant is Greg Taylor. Mr. Taylor, please go ahead.
I don't really have anything to say other than I must admit I find this incredibly confusing. It may make sense to others at the council and perhaps others in the community, but it seems to me a simple calculation should be simple to communicate. I'm also wondering, I guess my only question is, will a new communication be circulated in the near future to replace the mistaken November 23rd communication?
That's correct. We'll be communicating with all the water users after the public meeting here, and then we'll be providing a proper updated copy of the charts and then simple examples as well, so that everybody has a copy of what's going on.
And Mr. Taylor, if I may also recommend, it may be beneficial for you to follow up specifically with our operations department and ask specific questions about your bill and how the proposed changes will impact your specific bill.
I've done that, and I've had a good conversation and much help from Steve, but I must admit that conversation and everything else I've seen, I find myself going around in circles. And I work with mining companies figuring out analysis and valuations, and I don't understand this, but that's my weakness, I guess.
I will follow up with you, Mr. Taylor, after probably tomorrow or Friday.
Much appreciated. As I said, I mean, I have had support, but I don't know what it is. I just, I'm not quite sure. I just don't understand the language, I guess. And I know I'm not entirely alone, but thank you for your, thanks for your help.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Our next registrant is Mr. Lyle Love. Mr. Love, please go ahead. Okay, Lyle, you are now unmuted. Mr. Love, we can't seem to hear you. Still nothing. So if I may make a recommendation, try to disconnect and rejoin to the meeting and we will circle back.
Madam Clerk, I see Councillor Barton, I believe she had her hand up.
I believe she was indicating to Mr. Love that she couldn't hear him. Okay, so Mr. Love, please disconnect and rejoin the meeting. Our next registrant is Paul Smith. Mr. Smith, please go ahead.
Yes, good evening. I echo Peter Hughes's comments. I'm in East Linton water system. We use approximately 30 cubic meters per billing cycle. And based on the numbers that were presented tonight, that's just about a 29% increase, which I think is pretty steep. So it looks like the new model is going to really penalize the people that have been running right around the 30 cubic meters per 60-day period. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Our next registrant is Mr. Barry Hargrave. Mr. Hargrave, please go ahead.
Yes, hello, thank you. Barry Hargrave, 561 Balmy Beach Road. The presentations are quite helpful, all of the comments. I appreciate also Steve's efforts in guiding me through some of the numbers. I met with him on Monday, but the numbers that I was working with on Monday are not the ones that I have in front of me right now. And I think that the confusion of the changing rates that we have the financial plan for Georgian Bluffs. We have the table that was included with our water bill in November. And now we have Steve's quite well, clearly laid out PowerPoint presentation, but the numbers are not exactly the same. They're drastically different. So the East Linton system, for example, the table 3.3 in the plan, and the table that was in our water bill, the annual water use for an average user in East Linton would be $525.66. But tonight, Steve presented it on page 13 of his presentation that the average overall East Linton rate would be $797.22. So that's about a $225 difference on what I have been assuming was the base rate of 525. When we start to change the numbers that greatly, it's quite confusing to those of us that are trying to keep track of our budgets. So I have written 4 questions to the meeting, and I appreciate the answers that I was given this afternoon. I have them in front of me, and I thank the staff for answering the questions, but I still have problems of how the rates change from 328 a cubic meter to now 343, and the comments indicate that the plan has been updated to reflect the total usage. But this has happened just in the last few days because the values that I was using that Steve gave me on Monday are not the values that appear in his report tonight. Now, I'm not being critical of him. He's trying to communicate, but it makes it difficult to have assurance that the rate structure that we're being asked to comment on is solid, because it apparently can and is being changed. And the one, the 4th comment that was also replied to in a general way, but it echoes the comments that I've just heard in the last while about the reserve fund, the amount of money in the reserve fund, which if you look at figure 4.4 in the financial plan will increase from $50,000 a year in the reserve for the East Linton, so the total system, not just the East Linton, but all 4 systems. It will increase to 600,000, just a little under 600,000. That's a huge increase in reserve. Now, obviously, there's money required for Potawatomi, and I don't. Certainly, that needs to be a priority for staff to deal with the shortfall in in capital expenses that are required to bring that system up to current and necessary standards. But I think an increase from like a surplus of 50,000 to a surplus of 600 is excessive. I think the rate structures are too high. I think there is not enough service provided for the increase in costs that we're all going to experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hargrave. Our next registrant is Marion Gibson. Marion, please go ahead.
I'm wondering, I'm on the East Linton system. I'm wondering how you define an unconnected property. The reason I'm asking is there are about 20 of us at the north end of Balmy Beach Road that own a piece of property across the street. We will never be allowed to build on it as it abuts an environmental area. So I'm just wondering if we're going to end up with a bill for that as well. There won't be any usage on it, but there might be reserve on it.
So in regards to the properties on the north leg of Balmy Beach that have the road that go through where you have separate lots, those extra lots that are on that side that are very small, they will not be extrally charged.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Marion. Our next registrant is Joan and Murray Harris. Please go ahead.
It's Joan Harris speaking, and thank you for the opportunity tonight. I have two basic questions, and just to confirm, we are on the East Linton system. Over the past few days, I've spent quite a lot of time comparing three documents available to me. The Ontario Clear Water Association document that is on the website, the chart that came in our mailing in November, and the PowerPoint presentation available for this evening. So using the formula that Steve modeled for us, which reflects using 159 meters cubed per year, I used his same formula and I compared it to what it would look like now for those of us who have a basic inclusion of 0.5 cubic meters per day. And I came up with the same conclusions as other speakers this evening, whereby if you're using 0.5 cubic meters per day, that would look like $877 annually. However, where I see a large discrepancy, which I just don't understand, in the Ontario Clear Water Association document, table 3.6, using almost half that amount of water, 268 liters per day, it says that that user would pay in East Linton $846.51. And that particular discrepancy I couldn't understand and would appreciate feedback on that item. My second question or comment is that this pricing model would appear, I absolutely support conservancy of water, it's a precious resource. However, for users who happen not to be here 3 or 4 months of the year, the system still has to be maintained and provided. Does this not provide quite a benefit to those who are only here for a portion of the year? Those are my two comments and questions. Thank you.
Very well done. Absolutely. Thank you, Ms. Harris. Our Director of Operations has been making note of your comment and will follow up with you following the meeting.
Thank you. I submitted the document to you today. Thank you.
Okay, and our next registrant is Cherie Bellamy. Cherie, please go ahead.
Hi, a number of my questions have been answered, particularly the question about the discrepancies between the original letter going out and the presentation today. But in that presentation, it does show that 2023 increase. I should say I live in Shallow Lake. So the 2023 base price isn't going to be much less than we're currently paying. Plus, we're going to be paying on top of that a usage fee. So like everybody else has said, that's going to be quite an increase in the bill. And our bills, just like everybody else's, are quite high for our location. So I am concerned about that, and it kind of stops after 2023. What are the years after that going to be like? Are we looking at, how much increase per year after that and so forth?
So annual increases following 2022 would be 3.2% up until 2027 for the duration of the financial plan.
Okay, and so that would be an increase to the base price as well as the fee per use, because we're really paying two fees. We're paying a base price plus we're paying a fee per use. So I want to be clear as to what we can expect for that.
Both fees will increase on an annual basis.
By 3.2%?
Correct.
So that is very concerning, as a lot of people have already pointed out, for the cost of our water, which is already significantly high. So I am very concerned about that. And I'm not sure what we can do about that, but I feel like we're all voicing that concern here, and that I don't think it's very affordable for families to be able to continue with these prices just for basic water. I am aware that it does cost money to produce that water, and that can be quite significant in price. But other people pointed out too about the funding, the reserve funding. So is that reserve funding going to be for urgent repairs such as main breaks, or is it for ongoing maintenance to help keep our costs down? Because one of the things that can help keep the costs down is if we do ongoing preventative maintenance, so we don't have to have as many urgent things happen. So is the reserve funding going to go towards that?
Thank you for the comments there. In regards to the shallow lakes, your base rate currently right now is $4.49. It's actually going to be going down to $2.61. And then you'll be paying for the user's consumption of what is currently being used by the residents. So if you're using 10 cubic meters, you'd be paying the base rate for the 2 months of the $2.61 per day, and then you pay for the $3 per cube, that are $3.43 per cube you use. So if you use 10 cubes for the 2 month cycle, that'd be $34.30 on top of what the new base rate is. The shallow lake system here, when we were looking at it overall, it is dropping down 10% from what you're currently paying for a bill. So the average use for moving to the system for shallow lake, currently the average use in shallow lake would break as of today is $1,638.13 per year. The average use for shallow lake proposed in 2022 will drop down to roughly $1,463.72. The reserve money will be used for water main repairs, repairs at the water treatment plant. That's where that reserve money will be going for breaks and any emergency catastrophes that relate to the water system.
Is it also going to be going towards preventative maintenance to help with the cost of those urgent things such as main breaks? Because if we have put some of that money into preventative maintenance, then we won't have as many urgent things, which tend to be more costly and harder to budget for.
So preventative maintenance that you just quoted is taken from annual operating budgets. So reserves are not used for preventative maintenance. They're used for capital upgrades.
Okay.
And Sherry, if I may just recommend, or Cherie, my apologies, it may be beneficial for you to connect with our operations department and have a sit-down evaluation of how the proposed amendments will affect your specific bill.
Okay.
Including the annual increases.
Okay. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, may I just ask a question right now, please? Mm-hmm. Steve, the reserve funds for each one of the water systems are for the use for that system?
Yes, so the reserves for each system is used for that system only. So they shouldn't be used to pay out for another water system.
Exactly. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, our next registrant is Jane Lukasik. Jane, please go ahead.
Hello, I'm from Potawatomi subdivision. I would like to thank John for really voicing our basic concerns, and to Grace for asking for more information and some kind of feedback on what's been going on. And I have no further comments, but I do look forward to hearing from those concerned. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jane. Our next registrant is Jeff Pinch. Jeff, please go ahead. And Jeff, as you are participating by phone, you do have to select *6 to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
I feel like that guy in the TV commercial that's on mute. Okay, I've got one kind of detailed question, and then I'm going to pull up and ask two kind of strategic ones. The detailed question is, what happens after this phone call and the next collection of information before council decides what to do?
If I may, Mr. Mayor. So the intention of this public meeting this evening is to gather feedback regarding the proposed changes. As we noted, no decisions are being made here today. Should council opt to make this amendment, it is required to be done through bylaw. So in the new year, a staff report with recommendations out of this meeting will be presented for council's consideration. We will circulate notice of that report to all of the registrants here this evening and welcome you to participate in that meeting once again. At that point, should council choose to enact this new proposed system, a bylaw will be prepared for adoption at a subsequent meeting. Essentially, we're not looking at any changes until earliest February 2022.
Thank you. I forgot to mention I'm also Potawatomi. I concur with all the discrepancies. Guys, this is not new. I've been here about 15 years, and it seems like every time we have one of these meetings, there are too many versions of numbers that are distributed, and it's extreme. I find it at least extremely confusing. The second part, that's again somewhat negative. We had a meeting in Shallow Lake about this topic, and the notes that came out after that meeting did not begin to reflect the negativity that especially the Potawatomi folks had. So just that's feedback. You know, don't sugarcoat it. You know, we're not happy here. The main reason we're not happy is our bills are going up and the quality's going down. It's really simple. The second big strategic sort of question is the Potawatomi water system is a failure. It's based on one well. It's got bad water. It's got a poor distribution system. At what point will council recognize that we're doomed and stop throwing money at a sinking ship? I would love to see council get out of the box and go, okay, this just simply doesn't work for a 10 or 20 year period. What are we going to do? Anyway, that's all I've got to say. Thank you very much for putting the presentation together. It was great talk, great discussion. And we need a follow-up meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff, and we will certainly communicate with all of the registrants here this evening when that report is presented. And in considering all of the feedback we've received about Potawatomi, I would suggest that Director of Operations please include a specific update regarding the Potawatomi system. Our next registrant here this evening is Catherine O'Hagan Todd. Catherine, please go ahead.
Thank you. I'll change it up here a little bit. I'm actually on the Oxenden water system, so just a couple of things just in response to what other people have shared. I do appreciate that it's under a different contract. I don't appreciate the fact that it was not addressed in any way tonight, but it was included in the information that was sent out. I do concur about the changing in numbers and looking at what had been presented tonight versus information that had been shared. I don't know that, kind of tying into other water systems, the expectation your rates will go down unless, of course, those that are looking to join on to East Linton is going to result in a great reduction, but perhaps will address their quality issue. We had something similar to that happen in our water system and joining into what's actually provided by the town of South Bruce. And I just wanted to point out to people with the rate structure that I see here or being proposed, I don't know if council has actually followed kind of a rate system as well as a structure that actually aligns to what is actually provided to us in terms of the rates that are for the Oxenden water system. So that rate of the 3.43 seems to be across the board now on a usage rate. But we are under a contract that kind of dictates, I guess, what we ultimately pay. So it's something perhaps to consider as well. I do, again, appreciate what people have had to say. There's a lot of disparity here in what people are paying. And it seems to be that Georgian Bluffs is trying to run multiple small water systems, none of which can really ever achieve kind of the economies of scale that you do get in a complete water system. And at the end, I think it just demonstrates, again, that I think a comment that was made in the presentation about a fair and equitable system is not really a fair and equitable system. So hopefully what council takes from this, it's that follow-up of some of the items people have put forward, like what are you to do about this Potawatomi system and should their investment be made there? We've got to start to move to something more equitable. And I would appreciate if council were to take back, I think, around the Oxenden water system, and I don't think any of the residents that are on this particular system really have much to say because we were delivered a substantial increase with no consultation. And I don't even know where that stands at this point in time and when that would change. But again, I think it's this point about some transparency, the inclusion, and working towards something that's equitable. Because this is not an equitable system. And I can see that in the numbers, I can say it from my own perspective, what East Linton is paying, we're like at least double that. If I compare to my neighbors 2 lots down from me that are the town of South Bruce, I'm paying 175% or 200% more for the same water that's only a few kind of meters away. So again, I think it's incumbent on Georgian Bluffs to kind of take this back. And again, I would like to see if there's going to be discussion around water rates, that there be some inclusion of the Oxenden as well, because I think people need to be heard from the same perspective that everybody is participating from the other water systems today. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. Our next registrant is Jerry Beaver. Jerry, please go ahead. And Jerry, as you are participating by phone, you will have to select *6 to unmute yourself. Okay, Jerry, we will circle back. So now to return to those that were unable to provide comments upon first call. Ms. Kim West. If you'd like to speak, please go ahead. This was the last call. Okay, and moving on, Miss Sandy Ashton, this is your last call. Miss West, I see you have unmuted yourself. Would you like to make a comment? Okay, Miss Ellen Jefferson, last call. Mary Innes, last call.
Hello.
Hi there, please go ahead.
Okay, this is Mary Innes. I've learned a lot, so I really appreciate everyone's time and comments, and I don't want to add anything, but thank you to everyone.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Lyle Love, returning to you. Okay, and Mr. Mayor, that's everyone. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Does council want to ask any questions or make any comments? Councilor Coburn, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question, and I'm not really sure who even to direct it to, but sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I want to go back to something Mr. Hughes said, because I've been wondering the same thing. We're required by regulation to have a 6-year financial plan for water. Apparently the 2015 or 16 plan, which predates me, recommended yearly increases to 2021. I'm curious as to why that plan was not followed, and why are we now having to catch up several years and slap such an exorbitant increase because of that on our ratepayers. I just wonder if anyone on council or on staff might be able to answer that question.
It's an excellent question, Councilor Coburn, and I don't think I can really truthfully answer it. I think it was just missed by the existing council, and we did have quite a change in director of operations through the period of time, so I don't know if that influenced it or not, but I just plain already think it was missed during our administration. I hope that answered your question, but I don't know what more to say.
Thank you for your honesty, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate that. I find it to be very disappointing.
I think we can all concur to that, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just want to note that while we recognize these increases are a large upfront, given that the increases have not been applied over the annual basis as they should have, we have acknowledged the I don't want to say error, but we have acknowledged that the increases have not been applied regularly. The staff that currently are at the table at the township have identified the error and are doing our best to correct it in the fairest way that we can to ensure that these increases are not missed or are not forgotten in moving forward.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councillor Thompson, please go ahead.
It's not a question. It's a comment. I sometimes hate when we have. I'm discouraged when we have a great turnout and we gather the information and don't offer any comments. And I certainly appreciate staff's effort to get an explanation out to people. And I also certainly appreciate that the information is technical and hard to understand. I certainly have struggled myself. I'm thrilled that we have so many people here. And although it rings a bit hollow, your concerns are valid and they are heard. And I'm certainly not making an excuse. It is a real challenge. We have tried many different things to look at our water systems. So, you know, when we talk about the Oxenden system as an example, the Oxenden system is not ours. The rates aren't ours to set. And certainly what we tried to do is negotiate the best we could do from a neighboring municipality. But, you know, without saying too much, we were basically handed a bill and said, this is the rate. Take it or leave it. So I do believe in consultation. That one, you know, is a tough one because we're not setting the rates. We're responding to those. And certainly what we have is one of the beautiful parts of our township is we're a patchwork of a bunch of small, proud, independent communities. The bad news is we also have a patchwork of water systems, and all water systems are not created equally. So as you can see from the conversation tonight, some people are saying, I can't bear this increase from, you know, $120 a month to $140 a month. And another system is saying, it looks like my system might go to $600 a month, or, you know, I'm using the worst case scenario. So it is a challenge for us. We've tried many different ways to look at. Potawatomi is a good example. Can we talk to the city? I've been here for quick math. I don't know, 17 years. It's been on our agenda for 17 years, and we're not any further ahead today in that conversation than when we started. We've talked about, you know, extending lines. That's a real challenge too. So it is something we need to look at, and it's something we need to face head on. It's a challenge, and certainly I'm excited today to hear people say they want equity, because I think what we would say is, if we look at extending a water system to serve some of the areas that are paying the most, some of the people that are paying the least to achieve equity are going to pay more. But I'm encouraged to hear people say that equity across the services or across the township is something that we would strive for. So that's just my little comment. I know it rings hollow. I know it doesn't make everything okay. But I do, like I said, feel awkward when people take the time to come and make a presentation and they don't hear anything from a councillor. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. With our fantastic staff we have here now, the municipality now, I'm very confident that Mr. Steve Noller, our Director of Operations, will reply to all the participants here tonight, plus anyone else who wants to call them. And I commend them for finding a flaw in our system. And unfortunately, the rates will probably be going up. But let's wait and see what the report's going to come back to council and how we can rectify this. Council has made no decisions which way we're going yet until the new year. That's very important. We do have a new CEO starting the beginning of the year. I'm quite sure staff will have a conversation with her too to see what other remedies we may come up with. Councillor Barker, go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to all the people that made a submission tonight, thank you very much. This has always been a very sensitive, passionate topic. I've been around for 27 years. I was there when the shovel went in the ground for the Oxenden system, and lived through that. It's always been the opinion of council, or of at least me, that it's a user pay system. So if you're in Shallow Lake, we'll say, for example, and your water rate is whatever it is, and then if you're in, I'll just use for examples, and then if you're in Potawatomi, so you want the same rates So when you do an average, playing with numbers, so shallow lakes would go up and Potawatomis would be going down. So then, is that a user pay system? Well, it is and it isn't. Not really. It's not fair to the people of Shallow Lake. And this was one thing that council has always strived to do over the years. And I can remember sitting in meetings a few years ago before this council when it was discussed quite openly in a council meeting that there should be an increase. Now, rates are supposed to be locked in, I believe it's 6 or 7 years. So the new rates would automatically, I think it was suggested 2%, would be automatically locked in every 6 or 7 years. This first chart that you got was done by Aqua. The township retained Aqua to do it. And you know, one of the people that presented tonight, Mr. Taylor, for example, was saying he was going around in circles. Well, be careful, because there's a lot of other people going around in the same circle. So move quickly. I sympathize with the people. Unknowing is probably the worst, the most stressful situation to be in. I'm on a well, but I don't expect anybody, you know, to compensate me should I have a well problem. But to try and get something that is fair to everyone, you're bound to offend someone. They're going to say, that's not fair to me. So council is and staff is trying their darndest to find an equitable system. I don't know, a few years ago, there was an EA done on what would the cost be to run the East Linton system. Probably go back, I could pull the plans now, that would go up Mount Pleasant Hill and back and through Sarawak to Potawatomi. Well, then we had people in Sarawak that said, you know, I'm retired. I can't afford so many $1,000s a foot frontage to run a water line in front of my place when I maybe only have 10 years left to live. The costs were astronomical. So there's another side of the situation. So where's the fairness to all the people? Anyways, it's mandatory hookups are painful for some. So, you know, we try to be fair to everyone. It's next to impossible. Anyways, thanks for hearing me out. You know, a mistake was made. I guess it wasn't, rates weren't put up 2% a year as was suggested at council a few years ago, but, you know, that's in the past. We've just got to struggle. You learn from your mistakes. Thank you for your comments and good evening.
Thank you, Councillor Barfoot. Councillor Pringle, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There, yeah, I'm just going to kind of reiterate a lot of what the councillors have mentioned already, and a lot of great points were made there. I was pleasantly happy to see the amount of people that chimed in today with their responses to what is going on with the water in Georgian Bluffs here. I think it's great that we had so many people participate today. I think with you know, people working forward together, being us as council and taxpayers and our staff, I think we can probably come up to better solutions, or hopefully some better solutions moving forward. It was really good. I actually, with the Councillor Coburn there, I was thinking the same thing. Me being new to the council piece here, how we missed out on that rate increase for 4 years or 5 years, how that wasn't added in or got missed. But anyway, that's gone by now. We're going to have to move forward. And again, I just wanted to say I'm really happy to see the participation today, and more work to move forward on this, and hopefully we can come up with better ideas and better possibilities, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pringle. Thank you to all those that participated this afternoon. On behalf of council and staff, we appreciate your comments and encourage you to remain active in council process. Staff will take all comments and feedback provided this evening and prepare recommendations to council for consideration in the new year. We look forward to staff bringing those reports back to council, and at that time, council will look at it after we get many comments coming back from our users on the systems, and then we'll make a decision based on that. So if that's all we have here, Madam Clerk, I'll proceed with the agenda. Okay. We've no more delegations here tonight. The consent agenda. Does any member of council wish to pull any item from the consent agenda? Councillor Coburn?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to pull, I'm sorry, one of them is under correspondence, so I'll leave that one alone. 10.3 resolutions from other municipalities and 10.1 biogrid, please.
Okay, Councillor Barfoot?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was going to have you pull the same one as Councillor Coburn suggested, 10.1 under the correspondence.
Thank you. Seeing none, I'll read the recommendation that the Council of the Township of Georgian Bluffs adopt the consent agenda for information as circulated, minus 10.3 and 10.1. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Sutherland, second by Councillor Barfoot. If there's no discussion on the motion before us, all in favor? Show of hands, please. It's carried. Thank you. And do we still have Councillor Thompson? Oh, okay. All right, I'll move on then with the agenda. So I'll go first with, I guess, Councillor Coburn, you pulled 10.1 first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I just wonder that's a lot of reading in those two reports, the valuation and the report on decommissioning and recommissioning the biodigester. I just wonder if I could ask our representatives on that board to summarize that work for the rest of council and for any listeners in the public that might be interested as well. Those reports have been a long time coming, and I believe the one at least is dated June. So I think it's time that we heard a little bit from that board to bring the rest of us up to speed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coburn. On the 10.1 issue concerning decommissioning and so on, the board made no decision. We did look at the reports and so on, but we had other information coming forth to the board of different avenues we could go to try and align the biogrid system so it's more profitable, so we'll work towards that way. So really, the board has made no decision on decommission. The report did come through, but we made no action to it. Hopefully that answered your question. So I'll move on with your next item was 10.3.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure if Councillor Barfoot wanted to ask any questions or make any comments, as that was one of the items she wanted pulled as well.
Okay, I can go ahead, Councillor Barfoot.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Coburn. I guess the big disappointment for me is that we've waited 6 months since that report came out, and we've never openly discussed it before council. And I guess where I get really concerned, because I hear this all the time, we're waiting for this, we're waiting for that, we're always waiting. Are you pushing to get these reports? We have ratepayers out there that have been questioning this for years. So I had hoped we could give the ratepayers some assurance that it was being taken care of, rather than, oh, we're waiting for this or we're waiting for that. I just find it offensive that you wouldn't share that information over the last 6 months.
Councillor Barfoot, was that your question because of your hand still up?
Okay. Me and Deputy Mayor Carlton sit on that board, and I can be very truthful to council that we did not discuss this decommission. It was proposed to look at it from our neighboring municipality. The board decided to accept it as information, and we moved forward with different avenues. Those avenues are still in the process of being finalized. And Mr. Domar, you can please comment if you wish. And once we get that information, we'll gladly bring it to council. Steve, are you able to comment on what's happening with this different information we got from the biogrid?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council this evening. Yeah, we are going to be bringing back a report to council in regards to the feasibility study and also the decommissioning report here. And then we will also be bringing a report back to the bio group as well on next steps on where we want to see to move forward with material loads coming in, energy loads, SSO, stuff like that as well. So we'll be bringing back a report in the new year to council in further information as well.
Councilor Barfoot, I see your hand.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you to our operations manager. Okay, since this has been on my agenda during this term of council, is this going to come back to this council before the end of our term? Or when can we expect it?
Mr. Domer, go ahead, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Barfoot, my intention is to bring this before we go to talk about budgets. So that report will be coming hopefully in the within January.
Thank you, Steve. If there's no other questions on that item, I'll go back to Council Colburn, and I believe it was 10.3.
Yes. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And you'll note that there isn't anything under 10.33, and that's my question. We used to get a full slate of resolutions from other municipalities on our agendas, and we agreed that those would be circulated by email ahead of time, and any that we felt were pertinent would be brought back for discussion at a council meeting. But I have not been receiving them either way, and so I wonder if this is something that's fallen by the wayside, or if all of a sudden the resolutions from other municipalities have ceased for some reason. But I just wondered if there was an explanation for that. My second question under this one is the resolution that was circulated regarding Grey Gables in Markdale. I know that you had asked for that one to come back at a later time where that could be discussed and you could give your perspective, as it's a county matter. I just wondered when we might expect that one to come back to council. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Colburn. As I indicated to council, I would like time to be able to bring that discussion back, and I believe it will be put on the agenda for January the 12th. I have all my notes put together where I can report on long-term care from the county level down. When I'm at the county, I wear my county hat, so I'm going to speak to you as a mayor of the municipality. And since I since I work, I get it right, since I'm the chair of the long-term care task force, I do have a lot of information that I can put out to council on the 12th, and it's referring to try and give you more information to refer to the response we got from Council of Task Force. But I'll definitely do that on the 12th. And Madam Clerk, you wish to speak to the first part of our question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So in regards to item 10.3, Councillor Coburn is correct. We did amend our procedures to have those resolutions circulated to council for review by email, and then each councillor could select which resolutions were to form part of the consent agenda. While the resolutions haven't necessarily ceased, they have certainly dissipated. So I have been collecting some. There's not many. So I will include them on January 12th. I'm hopeful that I will have a few more by the time January 12th does come around. So I appreciate your patience. They will be on January 12th.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Council Colburn, that answers your questions. Okay. So I shall move on with the agenda then. We're down to correspondence. We have a correspondence from Task Force concerning ice sponsorship challenge. And I can speak to that, but Councilor Barfi, you want to speak to it first? You're muted, Carol.
I'm certainly in favor of that if the rest of the council is. The only question I have, I see where other arenas and hockey games are being canceled. So what about our facilities during this new outbreak of COVID? So
Councilor Barfoot, I believe that the Madam Clerk is going to talk to COVID later on the agenda, and she'll certainly give us an update at that time.
Okay, so we don't know if our own buildings are open.
No, okay, Madam Clerk, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just for simplicity's sake, I can answer that now. The facilities remain open as there is no direction from the Dr. Era, being the oh my goodness, being the medical officer of health. My apologies. There's no direction to close them at this time. Effective December 20th, there will be new vaccination requirements for youth, specifically for youth 12 to 17. They will have to provide proof of vaccination. I have asked our facilities coordinator to provide council with an update as to what that will look like at our specific facilities, being minor hockey scanning prior to each of those events. So while there are changes coming at this time, there are no proposed closures of facilities.
Okay.
So in short, they remain open.
Councilor Barfoot?
No, I support meet the challenge of Chatsworth.
Thank you, Councilor Barfoot, for spending my money. But to answer the question, I accept Mayor Mackey's challenge of the $120 towards the Keat Arena, but I also think that I will buy time at a $120 rate for our Shell Lake Arena. And I put it back to Mayor Mackey to accept the challenge back from us that we all enjoy giving public free skating through a municipality. And I believe we do have participants going to the Keat Arena and Shell Lake. So I do accept it. And the other part of the challenge was council as a whole, if they wish to contribute towards the same thing. Okay. Councilor Colburn?
Yeah, sorry, I'm certainly in favor of chipping in. I just, I guess I do have some concerns about sponsoring activities where we're encouraging folks to congregate at this time when our case rates are increasing. So order from the health unit to shut down or not, I just want us to be very, very careful in what we're encouraging and supporting here. We certainly don't want to put anyone's health at risk.
I agree 100%, Councilor Colburn, but the free RF skating could be used anytime more when it's more safer. So I do agree with what you're saying. So I'm going to move on with our agenda then, please. I'll be down to committee reports. So the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting held on December 8th, 2021 be adopted, including recommendations COW 2021-115 to COW 2021-122. Excuse me, somebody. Oh, sorry, I was air bubble, I guess. I need a mover to put it on the floor, please. Moved by Councilor Colburn, second by Councilor Barfoot. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? See none. The show of hands, all in favor of the motion? The motion is carried. We're now down to staff reports. And I'll go through each one of these at a time, and staff will, directors will give a report. I'm going to start off with Planning Department.
Mr. Mayor, if I can just interject.
Sure, please
Can
go
you
ahead.
please read the motion, have a mover and a seconder?
Oh, sorry. The department quarterly reports for the third and fourth quarter of 2021 be received. Someone to move to on the floor, please. Moved by Councilor Sullivan, second by Deputy Mayor Carlton. Now we have the motion on the floor. I'll now go to each department head. The first one on the list is Planning Department. Jen, are you there, please?
Yes, I am, and good evening. So the third and fourth quarter report for the Planning Department. The report starts off with identifying activity that occurred in accordance with Delegation Authority Bylaw 2021-009. So through this third and fourth quarters, we have had 7 public meetings and 3 public hearings, and through the delegated authority, staff have approved 2 site plan agreements. The department activity is just a general snapshot of what occurs in the department. That's listed in Table 2, and we do appear to be fairly consistent with other years in terms of the activity. I do note that the activity related to property purchase queries decreased significantly in the last half of the year, so we stopped tracking that. The first part of the year, we were inundated with queries about property purchases and development in the township, so that did take up quite a bit of our time. One of the things that I wanted to highlight is that we've had a really successful year hosting planning students. I was fortunate enough to work with a total of 9 planning students during the 2021 year, and I'm very pleased with the reports and the information that they provided and the reviews that they've done for the township. So we will be continuing on with planning students for 2022. Special projects that we've commenced include the update of the official plan. We are fortunate to have Jail Richards and Associates working with us. I had a meeting this afternoon with the county planner, and we are on target to complete the update to the official plan for August. Staff continue to participate in department training and workshops. So those are offered through the Ontario Professional Planners Institute, as well as different sessions that are offered through AMCTO. Training and upgrading is really important, especially for planners in a rural area. And we're fortunate enough to be able to access that training online now. We've a lot more doors have opened up to us training wise because of COVID. So all of the work that we do in the planning department is targeted to meet the strategic plan. So one of the students provided a report on industrial lands, employment lands. That was to meet the objective in the strategic plan. So if council has any questions about the activity in the department this year or in the last half of this year, I'd be happy to answer those questions.
Thank you, Madam Planner. I'll open the floor up here in a minute to questions. Our next is Building and Bylaw Enforcement. Mr. Lewis, are you there, please?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, while I'm not Mr. Lewis is not with us this evening, so I will provide a brief overview of his statistics. So I won't spend too much time on it, but as you will note in the report, 2021 did see a significant increase in our building department. As included in the report, we processed 422 applications for building permits, which is the highest that this township has ever accepted in 1 year. So we are shattering development records effective 2021. You'll note that in Table 1, you see an increase there as well, being total dwelling units created is 90. That's a significant increase over prior year, as are the total permit fees received, almost doubling that. And again, that's quick math. So not accurate, but close to doubling that figure. Additionally, in bylaw enforcement, there's a decrease over 2020 and 2021, and I attribute that to our onboarding of a contracted service being JSS to assist us through the summer months. And as included in that report, JSS will be presenting to this council in the new year to overview their findings throughout that summer project that we did contract them out to do. So in sum, we are seeing a lot of development in Georgian Bluffs, and we do continue to, or we do we do forecast that to continue into the new year as well.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'll move on then, and I'm going to go to the Clerk's Department next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So not unlike the building department, a lot of our services, we've seen an increase in demand over prior year. And again, we contribute that to the development that this township has seen over the course of 2020 and 2021. I won't go through everything, as we've seen this report before, and you know what is under the clerk's portfolio. So we see an increase in communications. We're doing our best to get the word out there to our residents. In the new year, we are looking at a customer service portal. We have applied for a grant to that effect that will provide residents with a kind of a one-stop shop, which will allow them to access their accounts for taxation, water billing, etc. So we have applied for a grant to that effect and are hopeful to have that rolled out in the new year. But as I say, we are trying our best to get the word out there. We've increased our communications efforts by 32% over prior year, and again are looking at new and exciting ways to try and get the word out there to our residents to increase the transparency, especially within an election year as we move into 2022. We saw an increase in meetings that we held over prior year, being 110 in 2021 over that of 92 in 2020. Our licensing programs are still running and in effect. We do see a little bit of a drop off in 2020 and 2021 due to the pandemic, and we are working on a business licensing program for consideration of council in the new year that will amalgamate a lot of those licensing programs that you see in front of you today. Our animal control, our applications for livestock have increased over the last couple of years. We have seen an uptick of coyote activity in the area, so we are assisting our local farmers in trying to apply for that OMAFRA program for the livestock bounties. As a little chuckle for council and the public, I've been here since 2017. I've never seen a coyote bounty, and this year we saw 2, so that was an interesting change for the clerk's department. Not necessarily a welcome one, I will say, but a change nonetheless. Our cemetery services are up, so we are seeing more sales in that regard. We are looking at some capital requests in 2022 that will involve expanding our cemetery portfolio, including additional columbariums in our cemeteries. Our technology department, we continue to try and make strides in a modernization approach just to be more attainable or more accessible to our public, including hybrid meetings such as this, Access E11, which will go live in the new year. We're currently in beta testing, but we will be completed that in the new year, so that will go live. And we'll continue on with our hybrid meetings even into the new term of council. We're also responsible for the accessibility portion. This year was a reporting year. The township was found to be compliant, so that's great. We will be doing a fulsome review in the new year for this council to provide an update on our priorities as included in our multi-year accessibility plan. The accessibility plan is required to be updated in 2023, so we are starting to work towards establishing new goals for the new term of council. Our emergency management program, we held our annual exercise earlier this month, and we have submitted everything to the province, and again, we are compliant there. 2022 will involve additional training to try and get our program beyond compliance into a more detailed plan with more detailed dependencies, especially as we try to move out of the COVID-19 pandemic. One thing that's really exciting is in Q4, the clerk's department welcomed a records management coordinator on a 24-month contract to help us get our records management program back on track, including that of electronic records management. So Tommy has joined our team and has been actively working with File Hold and the clerk's department to get us back to where we need to be. And with that, Mr. Mayor, that's everything.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I now will go on with the Operations Department. Steve, please go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Council. The Operations Department has been very busy this year. We've had a lot of new staff coming into the department. We'll start off with the Parks and Recs facilities. We've installed several new flagpoles throughout the locations of the parks within the township. Centennial Park entrance was reconstructed and is now redone as of now. We do have some minor little updates to do it for next year, but because the winter season's here. Derby Community Center office was renovated in-house. Sarawak Park family upgrades. We did remove some replace some old wood chips with engineered wood fiber mulch, removed existing cedar posts, also removed some of the park equipment that was kind of out past its prime. New budget requests will be coming next year. Purchase of a new zero-turn mower, reconstruction of the tennis courts, purchase of a new floor scrubber as the old one kind of fell apart on us, installation of fencing around the Big Bay Cemetery. It's been an ongoing capital project for probably about 3 years. Replacements and installation of animal-proof waste receptacles and picnic tables throughout the township parks. So we kind of caught up with Yogi Bear there. Access improvements to the Satakardi water access area. Replaced existing heaters in Derby Community Center. So we got away from some of the energy issues that we were having there with the heaters. Converted the propane heaters at Shell Lake Community Center to natural gas. So we've seen a reduction in our cost between propane and natural gas. Currently, staff have revised 15 standard operating procedures and policies in the rec and facility specific area. Going into roads and fleet, very aggressive schedule that we've followed this year. We updated the township road classification maps, permit process of the roadway occupation permit, road closure sharing, and road access approvals. We did deal with 5 emergency water main repairs and service repairs that need to be done this year. Responded to over 68 winter events last year, and snow removal and roadside brushing on those ones there. We laid roughly about 300 tons of cold mix by hand. We did 30 kilometers of rural ditching this year for proper drainage along the roadside. We removed roughly about 225 hazardous trees within the town right away that were the crowns were kind of about to fall onto the road with the high windstorms. We've cleaned up all the catch basins within the township. Urban roads were swept twice in 2021. Gravel roads, we roughly graded approximately 1,170 lane kilometers. Roadside mowing, we did roughly about 2262 lane kilometers of roadside mowing. 7,000 tons of granite area was placed back onto the gravel roads this year to give us a better base. 17.25 lane kilometers of surface treated chip and tar was applied to various roads. Reconstruction of concession 7. We revised approximately 50 standard operating procedures and policies that were kind of out of date. Purchased a new single axle plow truck, will not be here till 2023. New half-ton pickup truck for early next Q1, and then various fleet attachments. The construction of Francis Lake Drive to a municipal standard was now completed. Assumption of various roads, so Francis, Big Rock, Spencer, and then completed an actual road needs assessment of the entire road network to create us a 10-year capital plan. That is what the operations department has been busy focusing in on this year. So,
thank you, Steve. I don't know what you're doing with your spare time. Next, I'll go down to Human Resource Department. Janet, are you there, please?
Oh, I am, Mayor Burley. Apologies, I can't. There we go. Through you to council. Thank you and good evening. So 2021, I look back at previous years, and 2021 seems to have been a very busy year in recruiting. In Q3, we hired 5 new positions, and in Q4, there will be a total of 7. Now, that being said, 3 of those positions are in operations, and we are just waiting for the budget before any offers go out, approval for the 3 additional positions. So we're just kind of getting ahead of that and doing the interviewing. Pleased to report that council hired a new CAO, and we are very much looking forward to welcoming her on January the 5th. Exit interviews in Q3, we had 1 exit interview, and in Q4, 1 exit interview with 1 other employee declining to participate. Offboarding, we had 2 staff members who were offboarded in Q3 and 3 staff members who were offboarded in Q4. Employee turnover, so we now have a full year, so we'll be able to compare year over year going forward. You'll see that I have outlined all the quarters for you here for 2021, including a turnover rate graph. Of note for Q4, the sale of the Wyoming Keppel International Airport is 1 factor in the turnover rate for Q4. We had 2 employees that worked for the airport who we unfortunately had to terminate because of that sale. Job evaluations, if you remember back in October, Council directed staff to engage Warden Updegrove to complete job evaluations and job descriptions. That is currently underway. Warden Updegrove have 5 of the 6 positions that are being evaluated. We're just waiting to finalize 1 position with the staff member, and then that will be sent forward. As far as policy work goes, I haven't been able to focus as much on policy work recently, just because of workload in the Human Resources Department. But we did complete a working from anywhere policy, and I did provide an overview for you there. As the same with a COVID-19 immunization policy that was rolled out, and again, provided you with the policy statement and purpose and scope. Of priority moving forward, I will have on the work plan for 2022 at the highest priority. The following policies will be reviewed or written. The performance management program will be reviewed and revised, as will our violence and harassment policy. And we'll be working on the development of a whistleblower protection policy. Those are 3 priorities for human resources moving forward. Training, again, didn't have the opportunity to do a lot of training based on workload, was able to participate in some training with our provider of online training, HR downloads, and also did a year-end training for OMERS. So that is it for my presentation, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you, Janet. All good reports from our senior staff. I'm going to open the floor up to council. Does council have any questions of any of these reports coming through our senior staff? See none. Good job, guys. So I'm going to move on. Madam Clerk, go ahead. Oh, I could ask for. I have a motion on the floor. Show of hands, all in favor of the motion. The motion is carried. Now I'll move on with our agenda. We're down to the planning department. The first recommendation is it has been demonstrated that proposed application is consistent with the provincial policy statement 2020, the county official plan, and the Township of George Bus zoning bylaw 2020. Comments from residents as they applied to this application have been addressed. It is recommended that zoning bylaw amendment application Z1221 for Iran and Andrea Metzler be approved. Someone to move to put it on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Colburn, second by Deputy Mayor Carlton. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none. Oh, Jen, you want to speak to this, Jen?
If council has any questions, I can answer them. I just wanted to briefly highlight that this application came before the Committee of the Whole at a public meeting on November 3rd. Concerns were identified by residents in the area over the proposed development. That development was a detached residential dwelling. The application sought to rezone a portion of the property to allow the dwelling to be built with a 0-meter setback to the EP zone. An environmental impact study was conducted and an engineered draining plan was submitted, and the environmental impact study identified the preferred development area on that property. So the residents in the area expressed concerns with additional impact on flooding, and this is along Balmy Beach. So the application, all of the comments provided before the public meeting were included in the planning report. At the public meeting, Jeff Robbins and Barry Hargrave both addressed council or the committee and identified concerns. The applicant, Erin Meschler, had her engineer, Rakesh Sharma, and her biologist, Linda Sober, also answer some questions from the residents and council, or committee, excuse me. And Mr. Sharma, the engineer, identified that the pre and post development flows will essentially be the same, and the development of that detached dwelling would not further compound the drainage issues in the area. So the recommendation is to approve the application. I did follow up with residents who identified concerns. to make sure that they had been addressed at the public meeting. And I did receive comments back from a number of them. There were 2 residents who did not reply to my email. There is a site plan agreement that is being approved under the delegation authority bylaw by myself and the interim CAO. That site plan agreement does contain all of the provisions that were stated in the environmental impact study, so that development occurs in accordance with that, so that any environmental issue is addressed and it is not impacted by that development. So if council has any questions, I would be happy to answer them. There is a bylaw on the agenda this evening for your consideration.
Thank you, Madam Planner. Does council have any questions on this motion before us? Seeing none, a show of hands, all in favor of the motion? The motion is carried. Council, I wonder, would council be receptive to have a 5-minute break? Okay, so we're going to take a 5-minute break.
Running out of battery.
Okay, if I can please have our council members that are participating virtually, please re-enable your video feed when you're back. We are back in council chambers and ready to go when you are.
Councilor Barfoot, I see your hand is up.
Okay, I'll try and take it down.
Thanks, Carol. Thank you, Madam Clerk. I believe everybody's back, so I'll move on to the agenda. We're down to our next recommendation, that the criteria for removal of H symbol located in section 19 of the Township Georgian Bluff zoning bylaw 2020 have been satisfied. It is recommended that application Z1521 for Christina and Daryl Mallard be approved. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Tuttle, second by Councillor Barfoot. Madam Senior Planner, oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to turn it over to Chloe. Go ahead, Chloe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening. So this application is for the removal of the holding provision at the property located at 172 Mallard Street. The removal of the holding provision will permit the owners to build a single detached dwelling on the lot. So section 19 of the township's zoning bylaw applies a holding provision to all properties where an existing lot of record doesn't have frontage onto a municipally maintained road. So this subject property is located on a private road and therefore is subject to the holding provision. So in order to remove this holding provision, the owners must enter into a no demand for services agreement with the township to be registered against title to the lands. So the owners have signed and returned the no demand for services agreement, which satisfies the criteria for removal of the holding provision. The application for holding provision doesn't require circulation to relevant agencies as per the Planning Act. Notice was given to neighbors with abutting properties as per the Planning Act and was also posted on the township's website. No written comments in support of or in opposition to the application were received. So to conclude, the criteria for removal of the holding symbol located in section 19 of the Township of Georgian Bluff zoning bylaw have been satisfied, and it's recommended that application Z1521 for Christina and Daryl Mallard is approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Chloe. Does council have any questions on the motion before us? Seeing none, a show of hands, all in favor? The motion is carried. Moving on to our agenda. The next one is the next recommendation is the criteria for moving of the H symbol located on section 19 and section 10.5B of the Township Georgian Bluff zoning bylaw 2020 have been satisfied. It is recommended that application Z1321 for Christina Klua and Joe Klua be approved. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Colburn, second by Councillor Barfoot. And I believe, Chloe, you were going to do this one too?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So similar to the previous application, this application is for removal of the holding provision for the property at Lot 84 White Cloud Island. The removal of the holding provision will permit the owner to build a single detached dwelling on the lot. So Schedule A of the township's zoning bylaw places a holding provision on White Cloud Island lots. Section 19 of the township zoning bylaw requires a site plan agreement between the township and the owner to be completed. And section 10.5 of the zoning bylaw specifies the criteria to be satisfied within the site plan agreement. So that includes an acceptable mainland parking facility, an acceptable method of solid waste disposal on the mainland, and a signed site plan agreement regulating these matters and other matters relevant to island development to be registered against title to the lands. The owner has signed and returned the site plan agreement at this time, satisfying the criteria for removal of the holding provision. The application for holding provision does not require circulation to relevant agencies as per the Planning Act. Notice was given to neighbors with abutting properties as per the Planning Act and was also posted on the township's website. No written comments in support of or in opposition to the application were received. So to conclude, the criteria for removal of the holding symbol located in section 19 of the township zoning bylaw have been satisfied, and it's recommended that application Z1321 for Christina Colucci, CO Joe Colucci, is approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Chloe. Does council have any questions on the motion before us? See none, a show of hands, all in favor? The motion is carried. And thank you, Chloe, for giving your last report in the municipality. You are going on to better and bigger things, and you will be sadly missed. But anyway, thank you on behalf of council and staff for your service to Georgian Bluffs. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
So I'll move on to the agenda. Public question period. Madam Clerk, do we have any questions from the public? None? We're down to bylaws. The first bylaw is whereas council has given consideration to the written comments submitted by the agencies in the decision on proposed bylaw amendment application Z1221 for Iran and Andrea Metzler for property located at 454 Balmy Beach Road, and that whereas council has considered oral submissions made at the public meeting. Therefore, be it resolved that Council of Towns of Georgian Bluffs is satisfied that the proposed amendment is consistent with the Provincial Policy Statement 2020 and other governing regulations, and that bylaw 2021-82 be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation and endorsed in the bylaw book. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Colburn, second by Councillor Sutherland. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? See none, a show of hands, all in favor? The motion is carried. Our next bylaw recommendation is whereas council has given consideration to the written comments submitted by the agencies in the decision proposed zoning bylaw amendment application Z1321H for Christina Cluey and Joe Cluey for property located at Lot 84 White Cloud Island, and whereas council has considered oral submissions made at the public meeting, therefore be it resolved that the Council of Towns of Georgian Bluffs is satisfied that the proposed amendment is consistent with the Provincial Policy Statement 2020 and other governing regulations, and that bylaw 2021-91 be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, and sealed with the seal of the corporation and endorsed in the bylaw book. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Thompson, second by Councillor Barfoot. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, a show of hands, all in favor. The motion is carried. Down to our next bylaw, the recommendation is whereas council has given consideration to the written comments submitted by the agencies in the decision on proposed zoning bylaw amendment Z1521H for Christina and Daryl Mallard for property located at 172 Mallard Street, and whereas council has considered oral submissions made at the public meeting, therefore be it resolved the council of Township of Georgian Bluffs is satisfied that the proposed amendment is consistent with the provincial policy statement 2020 and other governing regulations, and the bylaw 2021-92 be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor, clerk, sealed the seal of the corporation, and endorsed in the bylaw book. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlton, second by Councillor Thompson. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, a show of hands, all in favor. The motion is carried. Moving down to our last bylaw, the recommendation is that bylaw 2021-88 being a bylaw to adopt a council remuneration policy and repeal by bylaw 2018-86 be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, and sealed with the seal of the corporation and endorsed in the bylaw book. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Colburn, second by Deputy Mayor Carlton. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Madam Clerk, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to note that the amendments, as discussed at the December 1st meeting, have been included, being inclusion of the per diem rates, the salary for each position, with the note that it will be adjusted annually per COLA.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. If there's no discussion on the motion before us, a show of hands, all in favor. The motion is carried. Our next recommendation is that bylaw 2021-87 being a bylaw to appoint a chief administration officer and repeal bylaw 2021-61 be read as first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, and sealed with the seal of the corporation and endorsed in the bylaw book. Someone to move to put the motion on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlton, second by Councillor Thompson. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Madam Clerk, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just one small note in regards to this bylaw, you'll note that it has an effective date of January 5th, 2022. That is the date that Cynthia will join our team and the date that this bylaw will be in effect.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Really look forward to it. A show of hands, all in favor of the motion before us? The motion is carried. Our next recommendation is that bylaw 2021-89 being a bylaw to adopt traffic calming policy OPS 2021-04 be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, and sealed with the seal of the corporation and endorsed in the bylaw book. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Barfoot, second by Deputy Mayor Carlton. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, a show of hands, all in favor. The motion is carried. Now we're down to our last bylaw. The recommendation is that bylaw 2021-890 being a bylaw to authorize a renewed union public library agreement with select municipal partners through formation of Owensound and North Grey Union Library Board and repealed by law 2011-899 be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, and sealed with the seal of the corporation and engrossed in the bylaw book. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Sutherland, second by Councillor Colburn. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? See none, a show of hands, all in favor. The motion is carried. Unfinished business. We're down to notice of motion of whistleblower policy. I'll read the recommendation. This notice of motion was brought forward by Councillor Colburn, and I'll read the recommendation. Whereas the Council of Township of Georgian Bluffs had has internal policies in place to ensure that it is accountable to the public for actions and that its actions are transparent to the public. And whereas the Township of Georgian Bluffs has a workplace harassment policy in place which addresses staff well-being and safety, workplace free from violence and harassment. And whereas Bill 168, also known as Occupational Health and Safety Amendment Act, Violence and Harassment in the Workplace, aims to protect workers from violence and harassment in the workplace. And whereas the township has a code of conduct which applies to the mayor, councilors, all members of township committees and boards, and whereas whistleblowing by employees in municipal governments can bring critical knowledge about misconduct and failed policies, outcome, and priorities to the attention of politicians or the public. And whereas the provincial government as well as other municipalities and agencies in Ontario have an in-place policy or legislation that provide legal protection from discriminatory or disciplinary action for employees who disclose wrongdoing of any kind in the context of their workplace in good faith and to a competent authority. And whereas it is advantageous to build upon and enhance existing policies that further strengthen public trust and accountability and transparency of the way their local government functions. Now therefore be resolved that Council of the Towns of Georgian Bluffs direct the following: that HR manner draft disclosure, wrongdoing, reprisal protection, whistleblower policy for Council's review. Someone to move to put on the floor. Councilor Colburn, you want to move that? Moved by Councilor Colburn, second by Deputy Mayor Carlton. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, a show of hands, all in favor? The motion is carried. Our next motion is going to be read by the clerk. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through your chair, the motion will read as follows. Whereas Council of the Township of Georgian Bluffs received correspondence from QP Ontario requesting support for an OMERS pension performance review at their meeting on December 1st, 2021, and whereas Council provided a notice of motion in support of said review at the same meeting, now therefore Council of the Township of Georgian Bluffs hereby enacts as follows. That Council of the Township of Georgian Bluffs supports QP in their call for an immediate, comprehensive, and independent third-party expert review of OMERS investment performance and practices over the past 10 years conducted by the OMERS pension plan sponsors and stakeholders, and that such a review would include, at a minimum, 1, compare OMERS plan level and asset class level performance to other comparable defined benefit pension plans and funds, OMERS internal benchmarks, and market-based benchmarks. 2, examine OMERS decision-making processes around the timing of various investment decisions. 3, assess the risk management policies and protocols that were in place and determine if they were followed and or if they were sufficient to protect the plan from undue risk. 4, assess whether the disclosures provided to the OMERS administrative and sponsorship boards were sufficient evidence to allow the boards to respond appropriately and in a timely manner. 5, examine executive compensation, investment fees, and investment costs at OMERS in comparison to other major defined benefit pension plans and funds. 6, examine other relevant issues identified by the third-party expert review. 7, make recommendations for changes at OMERS to ensure stronger returns moving forward. 8, issue their final report and recommendations in a timely manner. 9, publicly release its full report and recommendations to ensure that it is available to OMERS sponsors, stakeholders, and plan members. And further, that the OMERS Administrative Corporation be encouraged to 1, provide all requested data, documentation, and information required of the review panel to fulfill its mandate, and 2, establish a step-by-step plan with OMERS sponsors and stakeholders to implement any recommendations set out in the review report.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlton, second by Councillor Pringle. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Deputy Mayor Carlton.
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to comment that I think where this one becomes the most important is for our staff and their security of their future pensions going forward. So I think for that reason is why I want to see this one go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other comment from council? See none, a show of hands, all in favor of the motion before us? The motion is carried. So now we're down to new business. Our first item on our new business list is township response to COVID. Madam Clerk, I believe you are going to update council.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I just wanted to comment on the increase in numbers generally throughout the province, as well as some local outbreaks we've seen within Grey Bruce. They have spurred some changes in regards to how we're handling the COVID-19 pandemic, specifically within the township, being the Dr. Era's call to have employers revert back to a working from home model. Now, the township remains open for public service, as it will throughout the holidays, etc. But we have been encouraging our staff to move back to a work from home predominant model with consistent coverage at the office with all departments. As council will recall, we recently implemented a virtual phone system that allows our staff to be reachable regardless of their location. So we have been encouraging our staff to try and minimize their time spent in this office as much as possible. That will become more of a practice over the next few weeks, given the holidays and vacation schedules. So staff, while we remain present in the office, we are trying to limit our time spent here and increase our spacing, etc., just to ensure that we are complying with local regulations. I do anticipate likely maybe some changes at our facilities, but that is to be determined by the public health, and we will respond accordingly. And we will, of course, update council to any progress to that effect. In the same regard, we have canceled our staff breakfast that we discussed at our last meeting, just to ensure that we are continuing that spacing and not gathering. Our ITFD recognition dinner has also been canceled due to the local outbreak, and just ensuring again that we are complying with all local regulations. So at this time, those are the updates I have right now, but I will continue to keep council abreast of any changes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Does council have any questions of the clerk? Councilor Colburn, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to our clerk. I note that you mentioned that we don't have any changes necessarily happening currently with our facilities because we haven't been instructed to do so by our public health department. I'm wondering, though, I correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't have to wait for an order or a direction from public health if, in fact, we feel that a measure might be protecting our population. What is being considered by the emergency management team in regards to attending our facilities? I'm thinking in particular of our children and youth who have not been able to be fully vaccinated yet because of the timing. And do you recommend, or does our members of that committee recommend changes happening right now, perhaps ahead of any direction we might be getting from public health?
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Coburn. Not to speak on behalf of the Emergency Control Group, however, at this time, no changes are proposed, as throughout the entirety of the pandemic, we have always been in line with the recommendations of public health. So it would be my opinion that the appetite is to wait for direction from public health. However, should council have a different preference, we can certainly entertain those discussions.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And thank you for that update. If there's no other concerns or questions on this item, I'm going to go to our next item on our list is drainage issues in the municipality. And Steve, I'll let you start with whichever one you wish to choose first. Please go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council this evening. So we're going to start with my favorite one today is going to be Kimball area. In regards to the Kimball, we've received a lot of complaints due to flooding and water features being kind of blocked with new builds and stuff being on up there. So staff are currently out there. They were out there this afternoon doing some restoration works, trying to mitigate some of the water issues that have been going on up there. They will be back tomorrow to finish up the work that they couldn't achieve before the night hit here. So we will have that drainage hopefully kind of opened up for the winter spring thaw here so that we can bring back a plan of attack for spring of next year, which then would ditch both sides of the Kimball Rock Road there to alleviate the water. And then we also have to have some public consultation with some of the landowners out there in regards to which way the water is flowing and stuff like that.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Any comments from council? Councillor Thompson, please go ahead.
So I'm curious. I hope that it's not. And I know that drainage and I know there's a ton of water. I mean, our place has a ton of water, more water than we've seen before. But I'm just thinking about, I think it was last spring, maybe, we had people in our building talking about concerns about new builds that we had going on and what would be the impact of flooding to their homes. Is this in the same area or a different area? That's my first question. Then I have a follow-up if that's okay.
It's in the same area, but Steve, go ahead.
Okay, well, if it's in the same area, then I can just go ahead and then Steve can answer both. I think this is a really tough one. I'll speak for myself, not other councillors, but this is a really tough one for me because we have reports and we have people building, and then we have well-meaning neighbors coming forward and saying, I'm not opposed to it, I'm worried about drainage. I'm not opposed to it, I'm worried about drainage. And we always say, well, feels like we say, well, there's a plan. The engineers have a plan, it'll all be fine. And then we get here and I feel like, did we discount local knowledge? And this is not a comment about staff. This is just a comment about an observation that I make, that we sometimes discount local knowledge and say, well, the engineers say it's okay, so it's going to be okay. But as a councillor, I certainly get tons of people saying, there's a new build going up. It seems to me like the water's going to end up on my property. I don't see how the water's not going to end up on my property. And we always seem to say, well, there's a drainage plan. So I guess I just throw that out there because this makes me a bit nervous. Like when I heard this, I thought, oh boy, if this is the same people that came before us and said, I'm worried about drainage, and we said, no, not to worry, there's a plan, then I think we need to be a bit aware of that.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Mr. Dolmer, please go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Thompson, thank you for the questions and comments and information there. In regards to the drainage up in Kemble there, it was kind of one of those ones that kind of did slip through the cracks with the current changeover of staff here. It is something that we are trying to rectify and try to get going down with the new system that we are proposing to put in place here, that we would keep documentation on what's going on. That is something that we are looking at. The other component to it is now too, with our entrance permit process and our roadway occupation permit, we have now got a full different a view on how an entrance is going to be approved going forward. So site visits are going out there, review grading plans to make sure that they're not impacting what's going on for drainage in the area. We will be kind of moving forward there, looking at what the lay of the land and other information there. But in regards to this one here, it was just something that kind of happened, and we're trying to react to it right now to make sure that we're not flooding out anybody or cause any potential harm here.
Councillor Thompson, I see your hand up. Follow up. You muted, Ryan.
Thanks for that comment, Stephen, and I appreciate that you guys are looking into it, and I know you're not looking to see people be flooded, but I'm not sure if this is a situation where it slipped through the cracks, and I don't want to put Councillor Sutherland on the spot, but I think this was a purposeful conversation we had about, are these concerns legit, or do we have a plan proposed by the engineers? So Councillor Sutherland, I don't want to put you on the spot. I feel like it's local to you and you might remember this better than me, but I'm not sure if it slipped through the cracks or if we just took the word of the engineers. And the reason I ask is because I get repeated calls from two individuals in Kilsyth who are saying to me, there's a new build going up in my backyard and I can't see how this isn't going to drain onto my property. and I can't seem to get an answer. And we have development at Sarawak where people are saying, I'm worried about the drainage. So I just leave that there. I won't come back at it.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Sillon, you want to make any comments?
Yes and no. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you back to Councillor Thompson. So I don't recall the meeting, what day it was, but I believe it was 2 directors of operations ago. We had a council meeting here. It was about this development. And I remember 3 individuals that spoke about water. 2 of them spoke about surface water as well as ground water, well water, drinking water, and the other one spoke about surface water. And those individuals were very. The one individual, the water runs right past his property between his place and the next place, and he said that water has to go that way to get through there, and they have blocked this access off as of recently, and now it is getting away. The water's getting away. Staff have gotten out there and cleaned it up, and yeah, there has been something that, like you said, maybe slipped through the crack, but we're not sure where it did slip through the crack, and I think that staff are gonna make this right. We're gonna get this resolved. We've got a plan. Sounds like a plan to get the water moving now. We don't want to have anybody flood, regardless if it's now or later. So I believe staff are doing all we can, and we're going to, I look forward to seeing the engineered plan or for the spring drainage, what we're going to do there. So I'm sure it'll get done, and hopefully there's no more flooding issues for those residents.
Thank you, Councillor Sillon. Before I go to Councillor Pringle, I just want to say that the developer, Mr. Taylor, and his contractor on site are working with the municipality in every way they can to make sure we do not have a problem in the future. So I commend them for doing that. Excuse me. Councillor Pringle, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, just when I got that email saying that the festivities were canceled on Sunday there because of flood, and I went, oh my God, what have we done? And that was I was really disheartening to see that happen. The drainage piece, so that it's not complete out there though, right? It's not completed by the engineering company, right? There's still work to be done, is there not, with the ditches heading south? Steve?
Go ahead, Steve.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Pringle, that is correct. We are going to be looking at doing both sides of the road to reestablish the ditches that have been filled in over time. We will be changing out culverts that have kind of collapsed within there that are pinching water points. Also installing some culverts there that were never installed back in the day. So there's a lot of work to be done, and we're hoping to do that once the winter season ends. So I'm hoping April 1st our winter season is completed, and then we can start this work as April 5th. So that's where my vision is. But if snow keeps going, then we're going to try to do our best here.
Thank you, Steve. I'm quite confident that our staff will be monitoring this when it comes next spring until we can get this corrected. So, Steve, move on with your next drainage issue. Oh, sorry, Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
I know you're not looking this way tonight.
I got a sore neck.
So you may have just answered my question, Steve. What I remember from that public meeting a couple of years ago was that part of the problem out there was that 3 entrance permits were allowed to go in without culverts under them. So that effectively sealed off the west side of the road. Am I correct? So you're saying that those culverts will be put in to ensure the drainage goes down through there?
Go ahead, Steve.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Deputy Mayor Carleton. That is correct. There's actually 4 entrances there without culverts, so we'll installation 4 culverts to make sure that water flows on the west side of the road. And on the east side, there are actually 3 spots as well that will be required culvert work.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Please go ahead with your next drainage issue. I believe it'd be Church Side Road.
So just to give everybody a quick update on the Church Side Road there, and speaking with the consultant and contractor over the past few days about the potential to install the culverts across Balmy Beach Road this winter, it appears that the expected delay delivery time of the box culverts remains about April 2022. This is due to issues beyond their control. This is at the factory level, and then also other issues that are going currently on the BC side of there, trying to grab all the extra materials to help out over there. So we're working diligently here, trying to figure out when we have an anticipated date, but that's just to kind of give you guys an update there. Winter work of this nature does become far more difficult to complete, and maintaining the safety of the crews and the public becomes more difficult as well. A cold patch road surface instead of a hot mix patch would be more difficult to maintain and would be a disposal cost, as we would need to remove it to do a proper road rehab in the spring. So if we did the repair or try to get this done without the plants working, then doing cold mix, it'd be a disposable item that would come to the town. Other regarding the concern of the potential of the newly placed riprap, the rock that has been installed along the ditch line to roll down to the steeper parts of the slope with the spring runoff is not necessarily unfounded, as newly placed riprap may not fully integrate or settle into the surrounding soils. Currently, there is a rock flow check dam exists across the new channel just upstream from the existing culvert. This rock flow check dam would help prevent such mitigation of riprap entering into the existing culvert. So right now, if there's any water that does come down there, there is quite a bit of distance between the culvert and the check dam, which will stop any material from any rocks from going into it. As a mitigation measure, the contractor will be installing a larger diameter riprap in 10-meter intervals across the channel up the steeper sections from the existing culvert. This would help further reduce flow velocity down the slope and may be more efficient to install this winter. So we were installing a bit more bigger stone there just to kind of slow down the amount of flow that does come down the hill into that area, so that we don't, try to overwhelm the system, but it will also slow it down just enough to keep us in a great spring thaw situation. So that's the update for Churchside Road.
Thank you, Steve. I got to commend you on the nice pictures you sent out to council and your report to us. It was good. There's one picture there that really worries me. When you're standing down with your back to the culvert and looking up the brand new ditch. And I was there with you in the spring, and we seen the amount of water comes down over that hill. Big concerns not having that box culvert in there. It's going to take a commitment from the municipality to make sure we monitor that on the spring runoff. And I realize we can't do anything with it right now, but I'm just concerned that we have a contingency plan in place to overcome that. And before I turn it over to you, the house right there at the corner, I forget the people's name, but I'm really concerned with the amount of water that's coming off that sort of rework was done on top of the hill. The amount of water that comes down there is another concern with flooding these people out, and just launch your cautious thoughts. And any comment?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Mayor. In regards to that, as you recall, those ditches along that side when we were out there in the summer, they were completely full of material. So the water was actually flowing on the road and down the road and not actually in the ditch line. So with the opening of the ditches there, we'll hopefully be able to collect it, but we will be having it as part of our monitoring program when we do our winter patrols. We do patrol the roads in this area 3 times a day. So then we'll have staff's eyes on it constantly to make sure that nothing does flow up or freeze up, or if there is a nice jam or something within that culvert, staff will respond to it, open it up, and then keep the water going so that we don't have any issues going downstream or upstream.
Thank you, Steve. And I do agree that the ditches have been cleaned out. They're beautiful, brand new culverts in 2 or 3 spots up on the hill. And I'm not a rocket scientist, but I know that water coming down a brand new ditch like that, the time it gets to the bottom of the hill, is going to be a tremendous amount of water. So as long as we monitor it, that's all we can do. And I appreciate all the work that you and your staff have done. And hopefully we get the box culverts in the spring and finish the project. Madam Clerk, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just to build upon this drainage discussion, while my appointment of interim has been short, it has been riddled with drainage concerns and a lot of complaints from residents of the area. So I want this council to bear that in mind while we move through our 2022 budget process, because drainage efforts such as these will form a large portion of the capital ask. So I want you to just go into 2022 budgets noting that drainage is a priority for this township, as we have heard and seen the impacts of neglecting our drainage systems up to this point.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilor Colburn, I believe your hand's up.
Yeah, thank you for that, through you, Mr. Mayor, to our clerk. I appreciate those comments, and I think that's a worthwhile thing for us to consider. It seems to me with the drainage issues we've been having, our approach has been reactive instead of proactive, and I think we need to do a better job of planning when it comes to development and trying to mitigate these problems before they become problems. It's more expensive to deal with it in a knee-jerk kind of a way. And it's also stressful for our ratepayers and our residents. So I do think we need to take a better, more proactive and more comprehensive look at any development that we allow going forward when it comes to drainage. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Coburn, for your comments. If there's no other discussion on these two new business items, I'll move on with our agenda. Does any council member have a notice of motion to bring forward? Seeing none, excuse me, we're now going to go into closed session. The Council of Towns of Georgian Bluffs move into closed session at 8:05 p.m. with the interim CEO, clerk, director of operations, and acting treasurer to discuss 1, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposal of lands by the municipality or local board. Someone to move to put it on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Coburn, second by Councillor Thompson. If there's no discussion on the motion before us, a show of hands, all in favor. The motion is carried. We're now in closed session, so please go into your closed session agenda. He's not leaving.
Okay, Brian, we are now back from closed session. If you can please enable the live stream.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Council moved into closed session to discuss matters under closed meeting exemption C of section 239 of the Municipal Act. As a result of closed discussion, no action was taken. I'm now down to the confirming bylaw. The bylaw number 2021-93 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council on December 15, 2021 be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed to seal the corporation, and endorsed in the bylaw book. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlton, second by Councillor Thompson. Is there any discussion motion before us? Seeing none, show of hands. It's carried. Before I ask for adjournment motion, I would like to take this opportunity to thank staff for all their hard work in 2021. And since it's our last meeting, I would like to wish council and staff a Merry Christmas and all the best in 2022. And I'm sure we'll have a lot of fun. And we certainly look forward to our new CEO starting January. So with that, our next meeting will be January the 12th at 5 o'clock. I need a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Sutherland, second by Councillor Colburn. If there's no other discussion on the motion, show of hands, all in favor. We're now adjourned. Thank you, everybody.